Hi guys, it's Sam from Made by Ireland. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we're going to be doing the tutorial for the newest pattern by Sewfisticated Craft Designs. This is the Sewfisticated Packmate. For those of you who aren't new to my channel or to Sewfisticated Craft Designs or just know me in general, you may already know one of my favorite patterns is the Travelnizer by Sewfisticated Craft Designs. That's my Travelnizer hanging right there in the background. It was released probably about 2 years ago now, and it quickly became not just my favorite, but my customers' favorites as well. Apart from doing tutorials, I do also sell my makes. It's one of the most requested custom makes that I do, and I do sell quite a lot of them. They are absolute crowd favorites. As you can see why, it's such an amazing bag. But to be honest, Jassy wasn't 100% happy with it. She loves it, she loves the functionality, but to her, it's too many compartments. Can you believe that? If anyone has heard of Jassy's patterns, can you believe that she thinks it's too many compartments? Anyway, so she came up with the Packmate. This is also something that some of the guys over at Sewfisticated Craft Designs, you guys have been asking for this, so Jassy has finally done it. Now, let me tell you, this is an engineering genius as a pattern. I know I say this about Jassy quite regularly, but I don't know how her brain works to make this pattern come together. It is absolutely beautiful, but the maths that went on behind it blows my mind. I wish I can go into more detail, but this video will end up just being too long. So let's have a look about the Packmate and why I love it. So the Packmate as it is, this is exactly as per the pattern. It is a hanging toiletries bag like the Travelnizer, but there's a key difference. I think this bag could be so much more. So let me show you. So this is the make that we're going to make in this tutorial video today. This one here is my second test to make. I actually didn't make it as a toiletries bag. I made this for myself as a picnic / handbag. It's my mum bag, okay? I'll show you guys that in a little bit as well to give you guys some ideas of what you can do. My original first test to make, my mother has already stolen it. So literally straight off my sewing machine, my mother stole it and it's on a cruise with her right now. So it's popular. This bag is going to be popular. Let me tell you that. Okay, let's have a look about the Packmate, why I love it. So first of all, you have a gorgeous grab handle. The exterior is beautiful. Like, it's a rectangle bag, but it's got the curves in all the right places. She is beautiful. The grab handle, I love this style grab handle. It's a two-tone grab handle, so it just gives that little bit of oomph, that little bit more luxury to me. Okay, now it has two side pockets, okay? Now, if you wanted to make a quicker, simplified make, you don't need that many compartments, you can forego these side pockets for a quicker, easier sew. And Jassy has given you instruction on how to do that. But these are your side pockets. They open all the way up. They're almost like little ears. So when you arrive at your destination, you can open it up, sit it on your counter like this, and have easy access to everything. Or you can hang it up. I'll show you the hanging option in a second. So both sides are the same. You have mesh pockets as well as elastic band to hold everything in place. Now, I didn't mention this before, but on the side you have D-ring tabs there, okay? This is also optional. It depends on how you're going to use the bag. So the first test to make I did for my mum, I didn't do the D-rings, okay? Because she was just going to use it as a toiletries bag. So there was no point putting D-rings in because she will never hold it as a handbag by itself. Okay, now let's open up the main compartment. This is fresh off the sewing machine, so it is stuffed. Just pre-warning you guys. So open it up. Here is your hanging so that you can, let me bring it back a little bit, hanging up just like you would the Travelnizer. You have a flap that has two sections of zipper pockets. This can be made with either mesh or clear vinyl. I've used mesh here. Going into the inside, take my cardigan away. Going into the inside, you have two divided mesh pockets here on the back panel. On the sides, you've also got mesh pockets there. It is a big open section on the inside. And then over here, you also have a zipper pocket. Now, this zipper pocket is a divider zipper pocket. So if you put anything in here, it won't get out because the zipper pocket is sewn down. You have your zipper pocket in there, but you can actually still put things in the front here if you want it. Okay, so that's the lay of the land with the bag. Now, I don't need to tell you why I love this bag. I think you guys know. It's such a fun sew. Not gonna lie, I've not enjoyed sewing for the last few weeks, truth be told. I've had to sew a lot of straightforward, simple, nothing wrong with straightforward and simple, but like sewing hasn't been enjoyable for me. I've had a lot going on behind the scenes, and when this test came up, truth be told, I wasn't looking forward to it. I was like, I've got so much going on. Do I really want to do this? This bag perked me up so much. This is my third one that I made. Truth be told, I would have made a lot more if I had the time and mentally I was able to, but I've got so much going on behind the scenes. I wish I could tell you guys, but too much. Anyway, so it is a super fun sew, and the bag is gorgeous. I love it. Now let me quickly show you guys my second make too, because I want to give you guys an idea as to what I mean by it's a versatile bag. I love the Travelnizer. I've said this before. Love the Travelnizer. One of my favorite patterns. But the thing with the Travelnizer is it's a hanging toiletries bag. That's it. That's all it will ever be. You can't really, I mean, you can say I'm using it for craft, but it is a storage bag, okay? The thing that I love about the Packmate is it is a storage bag, but it's also a handbag. It's gorgeous. So I currently use the Sewfisticated Belle as my handbag. I love it, but I've made this one as a secondary bag. My eldest is about to go to school, and we're doing a lot more playground runs. I don't have diapers to worry about anymore. My kids are just getting that little bit older. And I thought this would be a perfect lunch bag, okay? So this is my picnic lunch bag. It's exactly the same. I've done one side as the simplified, so I don't have a zipper on one of the side panels. On this side panel I do, but I've changed the orientation. So if you remember, the other one opened to the back. I changed this orientation to open down the bottom. I haven't changed any measurements. All the measurements are exactly the same. I've just changed where I put the zipper to. And then so it opens from the top down. I've got a slip pocket here that will allow me for my phone or my wallet. I've tested it. I use the Sewfisticated card holder as my wallet and it fits. And my phone goes in here. So that holds like my essentials. And then I've made it so the inside, I've used insulated foam as my stabilizer. And so all of this is completely insulated for the inside section. So this is like the perfect picnic bag for me and kids. I've still got all of the exact same pockets that I had in the others. The only difference is this is now all insulated, so it can become a perfect picnic bag. I've still kept the hook just in case I wanted to hang it up. I don't know if I will, but I've kept it there because why not? And oh, I also added a little zipper pocket at the back just in case I had a little bit extra stuff that I wanted to bring with me. And so I really didn't change anything. I just changed pretty much where that is placed and added insulation. And this is now a picnic bag. And it will be super functional. It's a crossbody once I get the strap done, because if you've watched any of my videos or follow me at all, you know that I suck at doing straps. I leave it to the last minute and then I forget. But yeah, that's my second version of the Packmate. So it's super versatile, it's super beautiful, it's super functional, but it's so pretty and it's so fun. Genuinely, it's the most fun sewing I've had in a while. I loved making this. If you check out the tester blogs, you will see the testers also enjoyed it. There's so many tester versions on there. Most testers made more than one. It is so fun. But anyway, I am rambling, so let's stop looking at me and let's get to sewing. So come on, let's start sewing the Packmate with me. Yay! Okay, so let's take a moment to go through some of the fabrics and hardware that you're going to need for this pattern. Surprisingly, there's not that much hardware, so let's talk about it. Okay, so for this one, for my exterior, I am doing a faux leather vinyl. Okay, so I am using two different types. I'm using a main and an accent. So this is the buttery smooth faux leather from Inklings and the Kraken here in Australia. So I'm going to be using that for the sides and the flap, and the rest I am using this, I think this is a Lichee plain vinyl right there. Okay, now one of my tester makes, I did use a waterproof canvas exterior, so it is possible. You don't have to use vinyl, you can use waterproof canvas. One of the testers did cotton woven. I think there's normal canvas makes. So most fabric types will work depending on the capabilities of your machine. I sew on a domestic vintage Singer sewing machine, so it is a little bit stronger than a typical domestic machine, but I sewed through a full vinyl exterior without any problems for one of my tester makes. The main thing is what stabilizer options you're going to use depends on your fabrics, okay? So all vinyl exterior. Moving on to the inside. For the inside pocket, the zipper pocket, I'm going to use, this is a waterproof canvas from Inkling and the Kraken. One tip I will give you for that inside zipper pocket, that divider pocket, is whatever fabric you're using, I would choose something that is treated or water resistant. That's why I'm using this one, which is a water resistant canvas, because it is, there's no backing to it, there's no lining to it, okay? So when you open up the pocket, you will see the other side. So with that in mind, I would rather use something that is treated and so it's more durable, okay? So that's why I'm using that. With all of my linings, I am doing a combination of 2 different types of lining materials. I am using, this is a Vibrant Voo from Sewfisticated Supplies. This is in the color Seafoam. And then I'm also using this, which is Sewfisticated Twill, again from Sewfisticated Supplies. I think this is lilac or lavender. Truth be told, I forgot to look it up. I don't remember. Okay. And then mesh. We need a fair bit of mesh in this pattern. I am using Sewfisticated Mesh, again from Sewfisticated Supplies. I've got it in the light baby blue as well as the purple. Now there is an option to do the pocket, which I talked about before, with a stiff mesh. So stiff mesh is different from this normal mesh. I don't have any. I haven't been able to source it yet in Australia. Sewfisticated Supplies had some, but I missed out, and I don't think they've got any in stock at the moment. But this is what, it's a thicker mesh than this. So it is not this kind of mesh, okay? So if you do not have stiff mesh, then go with a fabric. But otherwise, this is normal mesh for the mesh pockets. There's also an option to use a clear vinyl for the flap pocket. So Leanne, one of the testers, one of her tester makes, she used a clear vinyl. So make sure you check out the testers blog on the Sewfisticated Craft Designs website. It shows all of the tester makes, and it goes into detail over what fabrics they use, where they sourced it, what stabilizers and stabilizers. That's the thing that I always go onto that tester blog to check out, because this is my stabilizer option. So all of these are from Sewfisticated Supplies. I buy all of my stabilizer from there because Jassy is a bag maker by trade. She's a bag pattern designer. She sourced all of this stuff, so she knows what she's talking about. That's really the reason why. So I am using a combination of a few different types of stabilizer here, okay? So for my flap and the side panels, I am using Sewfisive Light Non-Adhesive. So because I'm doing an all vinyl exterior, I don't need too much structure, so I'm just doing a light for the flap and the sides. For the back panel, I am using Sewfisive Foam, which is a self-adhesive foam from Sewfisticated Supplies. This is in the heavy. And then for the base, I'm using Sewfisive Foam again, but this is in the premium. So this is a thicker one, yet again. So in my last pattern tutorial, if you guys watched that, you would see that I saved my stabilizer till last to cut out, because I like to sew and see what stabilizer I use as I go. I'm not doing that on this one because I've made 2 different tester makes before I'm filming this tutorial. So I've done one with canvas. With canvas, I didn't use any light stabilizer. I used heavy and premium. Actually, that's a lie. I think I used light for the flap still. But I like to sew and see how everything's feeling with the materials as I go, and then decide what stabilizer to use. You will notice I don't have any interfacing because all of the fabrics that I have chosen are non-fray and don't require stabilizing. So yeah, so that's all of the fabrics and stabilizers. Moving on to the hardware, we have our zippers. I am using 2 different color zippers. I'm using green for the exterior. I'm using purple for the interior. We need some elastic. So this is normal elastic, not fold over elastic. Either 3/4 inch or 1 inch wide. I think this one's a 1 inch. We need some fold over elastic. So we actually need fold over elastic this time, okay? We need fold over elastic and we need your choice of binding. My choice of binding is fold over elastic, so I just need the one thing. But if your choice of binding isn't fold over elastic, you're gonna need fold over elastic as well as your choice of binding, okay? That's important. Oh, people always ask me this in comments. I use 3/4 inch width fold over elastic, okay? If you are using thicker materials, 1 inch would make it easier to sew, but I find for most of my makes, 3/4 inch is enough. Okay. Now, we talked about zipper tape. So with zipper tapes, we need zippers. So I have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zipper pulls. I am doing it so that it's exactly per the pattern. I have made one of my tester makes. I did need an extra 2 zipper pulls. So it just depends on how many zipper pulls you want on your zipper tape, okay? But this is how many you need for the basic as per the pattern. D-rings are optional. So I have here 2 1-inch D-rings. They are optional. They are to turn the bag into a carry bag so that you can have the D-ring attachment so you can attach a strap if you wanted to. This is not necessary. I did one on one of my testers and one of the others I didn't. I will do them in this tutorial make for you as well. Webbing. So I've got 1-inch webbing here to match the 1-inch D-rings. Again, if you are not doing the D-ring attachment, you do not need the webbing, okay? Now, I might change colors in when I'm actually sewing it. I'm not 100% sold on this color yet for my webbing, but we'll see how I go as I sew because that's just how I roll. Okay, so this is your swivel hook. This is a bit of a tricky one. They're quite, I don't know if they're tricky to find. They're quite tricky to find here in Australia. You can buy them off Amazon in the US. Even in Australia, you can get them shipped from the US. They're called 360-degree swivel hooks. If you Google that, they come up. Now, if you cannot source these, you can also use normal swivel hooks or D-rings as well, okay? So that is an option. On my second tester make, I used a D-ring instead of one of the swivel hooks. The reason being is my second tester make, I didn't want this as a toiletries bag. I wanted it as a picnic / handbag. So I didn't really need the hook, but I wanted to have the option to still be able to hang it up if I wanted to. So that's why I went a D-ring, because it's not too obtrusive. Now, the reason why I say this is super important, if you can source it, try to source it. It's worth the effort, especially if you're using it as a hanging toiletries bag, is because for my Travelnizer, the one I made for myself, so my first tester make, I couldn't find these. I didn't have them. I couldn't source them. So I used a swivel hook, okay? Now, swivel hook is great. Like, it obviously can still clip onto things and whatnot, but it can't hang on to a lot of things, okay? So when I go on holidays or travel and I want to hang the bag up, I have to get an S hook to hook the S hook onto the swivel hook to then hook it onto, you know, a toweling rail or wherever I'm hanging my bag up. So that's why, if you can, these are definitely worth the effort to source if you are doing it as a hanging toiletries bag as your primary function of the bag. Okay, so that's a lot of talking. Oh, rivets, forgot the rivets. So we do have an optional rivets as well. So make sure you have your rivets at the handy, but otherwise, let's keep going. Okay, let's talk about some useful notions, yeah, that you may find. So first of all, painter's tape. I use that a lot in this. A lighter of some sort. I do have an electric lighter. A few of you guys have asked me about it. I love it for webbings and that, and zipper tape. I just get them on Amazon, or just a normal lighter. A way to mark your fabric, be it how it may. I am using vinyl, so I am using mainly a erasable silver pen, thread scissors, of course, or just normal scissors, your seam ripper, because I believe in the seam ripper curse. The minute I don't have it near me is when I'm going to need it the most. And double-sided tape. I am not a big believer or user of double-sided tape, but I actually do use it a fair bit in this pattern, mainly because we're working with so many stretchy materials. So I've really found double-sided tape makes a huge difference. So this is one pattern where I think it's worthwhile using it. Don't skimp if you don't have to. But yeah, double-sided tape. Clips, you may notice I have more clips than I ever have because I went out and bought more clips after I made the pattern for the first time. So make sure you have your clips on hand, and a hump jumper. So especially if you are working with different weight fabric like I am, like I'm using faux leather on the exterior and quite thin, easy to maneuver linings. So a hump jumper is really helpful to have on hand. The only thing that you will notice I don't have, which I always have, is my stiletto, my pokey stick. She's gone missing. She's done a walkabout on me. She's here somewhere. I know it. So she will show up during the tutorial. She's just not here right now. Okay, so, but otherwise, that's everything. So let's get going. Okay, so first things first, we are working on the flap zipper pocket. So for you, this is either a piece of mesh or clear vinyl, okay? So I am working with mesh. Now, you will notice that I haven't trimmed my corners yet. My corners are not rounded. The reason for it is I cut all of my fabrics with the cutlass when I can, and then I trim with the pattern pieces. So this isn't cut to shape yet. I also don't cut mesh until I've sewn it onto what I need to sew it to, because mesh stretches and it's annoying, and it's just, this one is a good mesh. Sophisticated mesh is one of the best meshes that I've worked with, but because of that, I tend to cut it after I've sewn it. So that's why I don't have the rounded edges. You will. Okay, enough talking. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're grabbing our flap zipper pocket piece and we're going to trim it. Okay, so there are two measurements, and they're both from the top down, so from the curved corner down, okay? So the first one is from the top of the curved corner down, and then the second one is from here down again, okay? So I'll quickly go cut that off camera and come straight back. Okay, now we will have 3 pieces of mesh, all cut exactly per the instructions. And what we're gonna do next is we are grabbing 4 pieces of bias tape. Like I've said before, I use fold over elastic for bias binding. If you are new to binding, I recommend not using fold over elastic on mesh for binding if you don't have to, mainly being because obviously fold over elastic is elasticized and mesh is elasticized. So it can make this sewing a little bit trickier. Using double-sided tape makes it a little bit easier, but it can be a little bit tricky, okay? So just bear in mind with your capabilities and what you are used to, okay? But like I said, I use mesh because that's what I do. Yeah, okay, so we've got 4 pieces of binding material. And if you are also using a label, grab your label now as well. What we're going to do is we are going to stick our binding onto the mesh fabric, okay? So one along that edge, one along this edge, one along this edge, and one along that edge using double-sided tape. Okay, so what we're going to do is, move this aside, we're just going to, you can either put double-sided tape on the mesh. I find it easier to just put it on the, on my binding, so on my fold over elastic, making sure not to stretch it. So that's the biggest thing is if you are using fold over elastic for binding, don't stretch it. Now, Jassy has to put double-sided tape on both edges, so this edge and that edge. I cheat, I only do one edge. The reason being is this is mesh. If I were using clear vinyl, then I would do it on both sides. But because this is mesh, the tape will stick to each other anyway. So I only do it on one side, okay? And then we're just going to stick it down. Now, if you were wanting to do a label, Jassy has a suggestion here on where to put your label. So she has suggested on the top section, actually not the top one, but like on here, okay? So somewhere along there. Make sure you're at least an inch in from the sides, and then you can stick it down there as well. Okay, so Let me stick this into place first. Okay, so you'll end up with something like that, and we're doing it on that edge, and that edge as well. Remembering that this edge is curved. If you already cut the curves, this edge is the curved one, the one that isn't being binded, okay? So let me quickly do these other three. I say quickly, but you guys saw how much I struggle when it comes to double-sided tape. Apologize in advance if my head comes onto the screen. Okie dokie, so now you should have something like that. So your bias tape is all stuck down. You may have noticed I haven't singed the edges of my bias tape yet. The reason for it is I am waiting to singe it all together with my zipper tape. There is reason to my madness sometimes. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to grab our two zipper tapes, ZA3. Okay, so grab your two ZA3 zippers. So some of you may have noticed my zipper pulls aren't on yet. Jassy does have to have your zipper pulls on. I am cheating. I am adding them a tiny bit later and hoping that I don't forget. And again, what we're doing is we are adding double-sided tape. Now, again, for those of you who've watched a lot of my videos, you know that most of the time with these steps where Jassy says, don't add double-sided tape, I won't. Because double-sided tape is expensive here in Australia and I don't like to use it if I don't have to. Well, let me tell you, my first test to make, I didn't use double-sided tape. I was like, no, I've done these. I've done binding on mesh before. I've done sewing zippers onto mesh before. Like, this is fine. I can do this. My seam ripper was very busy that day, let me tell you that. Because even when you don't mean to, sometimes you can stretch this quite easily because I am using fold over elastic and mesh, okay? So I definitely suggest doing the double-sided tape, okay? Now, so what we're going to do now that double-sided tape is on, we're going to stick the mesh onto the zipper, okay? So again, apologize in advance if my head comes into view, but we are just lining it up. I like to line, I'll show you guys this actually a bit closer. Hopefully, can you guys see this well? Yep. So on the zipper tape, you can see where the gradient kind of changes. I like to line it up so the edge of my bias tape is up against that gradient where it changes. And what you will find is that almost matches up perfectly with the edge of your zipper tape being up against the edge of your binding on the back. So that's right on the grain. So that's how I like to I guess line my zippers and bias up, or bias tape, mesh pockets, these things. Okay. That's also one of the reasons why I don't like to put zippers on now, because sorry, I'm talking away from the camera, so I don't know if you guys can hear me. Because if the zipper was already on, it will cause a little bit of distortion where the zipper pull is. And so I find with that, I don't get as beautiful a smooth finish. And that's why I like to do this before the zipper tape goes on. But at the best of times, I am a adrenaline junkie that puts my zipper tape on at the last possible moment. So maybe don't listen to me sometimes. Okay, and again, zipper to the bottom there. And then the last piece on there as well. There we go. Now that that's all stuck together and beautiful, you can singe the edges now if you'd like. And we're going to head over to the sewing machine. We are going to sew the bias tape, the mesh, and the zippers all together. So we're going to do a 1/8 seam allowance on either side of the zipper to get that on. And then after you've done that 1/8, you're going to go back and you're going to do a second row, 1/8 from that first row, okay? So you'll end up with two lines of stitches, one at 1/8, one at 1/4 from the edge of that bias tape, okay? Now, that is for that one, and this bottom one. For this one here, you are just doing the 1/8, and you're not doing the second line of stitches, okay? but I'll talk you through it as we go over there. I'm going to quickly zap my edges here to get the fraying under control and meet you over at the sewing machine. Okie dokie. So we're at the sewing machine, so let's get these sewn down. So first of all, we are doing 1/8 seam allowances. I'll start from the top one. This one's going to look a little bit weird that I'm doing it from here, but this is what I'm doing. Just realized I don't really love the starting placement of that. There we go. Okay, so first of all, it is with a 1/8 seam allowance. I do back stitch on this just at the very start and finish. I just think it helps me a little bit. Okay, so after I've done that first 1/8 stitch, I'm now going to go in and I'm going to do a second lot of stitches, just 1/8 from that line there. Like so, from the 1/8 from the first sew line that I just did. Okay. Then the next one down. We're doing that with pretty much all 4 of these, apart from the next one down. We're only doing 1 line of stitches on it, remember? Okay, and then this one. So this one's the one we're only doing the 1/8. So just do the 1/8 on this. There we go. Okie doke. So that's all done. Now, what we're going to do is we might head back over to the overhead. We'll go back over to the overhead and then we'll keep moving on. Okie dokie. So we've gotten the zipper and the meshes all sewn together. So next what we're going to do, if you haven't already done so, is get your zipper pulls on. If you sewed exactly like the instructions, your zipper pulls would be on, but I am a rebel without a cause. No. Oh, God, Sam. Okie dokie. So once your zipper pulls are on, we're going to grab our flap lining piece. We are going to have it right side up. We're going to match the top with the top of the lining. Your mesh pocket will be longer than your lining. That is 100% normal. If you had already cut the corners, like I've said before, then obviously all of your corners would match exactly. You wouldn't have a rectangle on top of a curved edge like I do, but that's not how I like to sew. Okay, and then so we're just going to clip this all in place now. Okay, okie dokie. And now what we're going to do is we're going to head back over to the sewing machine, and first of all we're going to baste the mesh down to the lining. After we've done that, you can trim off the excess mesh, and if you didn't do the corners like me, trim that off as well. After that, we are going to, remember how one of these lines we only did 1 line of stitching? We're then actually going to go back in and do that second line of stitching across that that bias tape. Okay, so what that does is it closes off this pocket, so then you will have 2 pockets for this one giant flap. Okay, so follow me over. We're going to baste and then sew that shut and trim off all the excesses. Okay, so let's go. Okie dokie, so let's get this mesh not binded on, but sewn down. So we are just basting it on to our lining, so nice and simple. Now, if like me, you've not trimmed your mesh to size, make sure you are following the curve of the lining, okay? This is supposed to be a curved piece. And then on the bottom, same thing. Don't follow the mesh, follow the lining, okay? Here we go. And now that that's all sewn together, I'm just going to quickly trim the excess mesh so that I no longer have so much mesh hanging about. Realistically, that's all it is. And then, of course, the excess at the bottom. There we go. So now that that's all trimmed off and we've cut off the excess, we're going to bring the machine back in. And like I said before, we're going to close off that bottom pocket, because remember how we only did one line of stitches on there, whereas everywhere else we did two. So now we're doing that second line, and what that will do is close off all of those pockets. And so that is 1/8 away from that first line of stitching that you did before. There we go. And so now you should have flap like that, and if you open it up, the zipper pocket should end before here. There you go. Okay, so let's head back over to the overhead and we'll get working on the hook tab, I think is next. So follow me over. Okay, moving on to the hook tab. Grab your hook tab on the wrong side, right along the center of the shorter edge, the long edges. Anyway, draw a line straight across, okay? And then you are going to bring those two long edges in to meet that center line and press. If you wanted to use double-sided tape here, you can. Like I've said before, I don't use double-sided tape if I don't have to. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take this over to the sewing machine. We're going to top stitch along both of those edges that we've just folded in. Once we've done that, we're going to insert our hook, meet the short ends together, and baste it together, okay? But let's head over to the sewing machine and get those two lines top stitched first. Okie doke. So what we're going to do is we're just going to top stitch the two edges with a 1/8 seam allowance. Here we go. And once we've done that, we're going to grab our swivel hook or our D-ring or our, whatever this one's called, and slide it in. And then let the short edges meet. I like to keep long thread tails, as you can see, because what happens is now when I pull all these long thread tails over here and I baste it shut, it keeps all of my threads in place. There we go. And that is your hook tab done. You can trim off all those loose threads now if you'd like. And we will keep moving on. Okay, now we're going to be working on the divider pocket. So grab your divider pocket as well as your piece of fold over elastic. Now, first of all, we're going to mark a center point on that fold over elastic. So I've already done that here. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but there's like a little mark there. And then from that center point, we're marking two other points, okay? From the center to the left and to the right, okay? So I've marked that there as well. So there's those marks. And then we're going to mark the center of your mesh as well. Now, mesh, of course, is hard to mark, so it's up to you how you mark it. I like to just draw a tiny little dot on it that it's really hard to see on camera, but I can see here, so I know it's there. And then I'm going to match that center to the center point of my fold over elastic, and then fold that in half so that my center is on the center, just like that. And then the other mark that I made, I'm going to match that to the edge of my mesh and fold over. So you will have excess mesh like this hanging off the edge, and then clip that in place. And then the same over on this side, okay? So match that point that you marked and fold the mesh down. Now, if you would like to, you can now pull on your mesh and your fold over elastic and clip the rest into place. For me, I find it easiest to actually just sew it on at the sewing machine. So as I'm at the sewing machine, I'll get this bit sewn down, and then I hold onto the center and gently pull it so that it lies flat, and then sew it on that way. I find that way I get a more even stitching than if I clip the whole way. If you'd like to clip, please do. but that's just me. Okay, so let's head over to the sewing machine now, and we're going to sew the fold over elastic onto the mesh with the top stitch, and so follow me over. Okie dokie. So we're sewing this down with a 1/4 inch. Like, as you can see, I've got a fair bit of overhang here with my fold over elastic, but I actually start sewing over here first because that helps me maneuver and hold my fold over elastic when it comes to the point that I need to, I guess, what am I trying to say? Like, stretch it. Okay, so now I'm at the point where I'm at the start. And then, oh, can I move you guys back? Let me see if I can move you guys back a little bit. There you go. So you can at least see the center point. So what I'm doing now is I'm holding on the center point where the clip is, and I'm stretching until the mesh is straight and the fold over elastic is straight. And then I'm just holding that tension as I sew it on with that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So what that does is it just helps you get a really beautiful finish. So that's the center point. And now that I've gotten to the center point, I'm doing the same with the end there. I'm now grabbing hold of the end, smoothing the mesh into the fold over elastic nicely, and then holding that tension as I sew. There we go. So that's all done and all sewn on. Okay. And what we're going to do now is grab the back panel lining. Just going to move the sewing machine out of the way to give us a little bit more space. So here's my back panel lining. Now, in case you didn't notice, the back panel is not a rectangle. It looks like a rectangle, but it's not. So the shorter section, so the bit that isn't as wide, I should say, that's the top. So this is the top, this is the bottom. Okay. We are grabbing our mesh. We are matching the sides of the mesh to the sides of the back lining fabric, back panel lining, and I'm going to clip that in place, just like that. Okay, and I'm doing that on the other side as well. Okay, and what we're going to do first of all is I'm going to base these two short edges, okay? So let's bring that sewing machine back in, and let's base. Now, I like to do this section with the mesh facing down and the lining up. The reason being is my sewing machine doesn't necessarily love mesh, and I find that if I have the mesh on the top, most of the time it ends up getting stretched. So by having it on the bottom, I actually stop it from stretching. There we go. And then just quickly baste the other side as well. Okie doke. Here we go. So that's that basted on. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sew straight down the center. Okay, I will bring this back over to the top, but I just want to do this bit here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to find the center of both the fabric and the mesh, and the easiest way I found is actually just to fold it like this, so your edges meet, and then obviously your mesh comes out a lot longer than your center point here, because yeah, just because, really. That's not a very good answer, but yeah, just because. And then I just simply slide that lining over there and match that up right there. Okay, and what we're now going to do is we're going to divide this fabric quite equally, just like that. And we're going to sew a line straight up the center, up to the fold over elastic, and then straight one across and then back down. Or you can just do two lines side by side, okay? I like to go up, across, and down, because why come up and down constantly if you don't have to, right? Okay, so if you like to, you can grab some painter's tape just to hold down these other sides. I don't tend to do it. I like to freehand it because that's just how I roll, right? Get rid of these clips. Okay, and just at that center point mark. Oh, and here's a little thing too. If this isn't exactly center, I'm whispering this because it's a secret, but if this isn't exactly center, it's not a big deal, okay? It's just where your pockets are being divided, okay? So the main thing is, it doesn't matter if it's not exactly center, but you do want it to be a straight line, okay? So that's the main thing, is that you want this line to be straight. Oops, something just threw at me. Okie doke. There we go. So that's all done. Okay, so I've got my sides basted and the center. I'll actually go over to the top bit to talk us through folding this down to get that flattened, because I think that deserves a little bit nicer viewpoint. Okay, so follow me back over to the top and we'll get this finished. Okie dokie. So this is what we have done. We've basted the sides down. We've also sewn that center. Now what I like to do is find the centers of the mesh and the lining in this section first, okay? That's how I like to do it. So I just quickly do that. It doesn't have to be exact, but, and then I match them together like that. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. This is just how I found gives me the prettiest finish, okay? And then I'm doing that on this side as well. So finding that center, finding that center. So find out which way works best for you, whether you do it like I did before, where they go separate, or they fold the same way. Go. And then what I like to do now is with that center clipped, I then slowly maneuver the mesh inwards towards that center clip, and then fold it down, okay? So however wide you make this is really up to you as to how you want to do it, okay? If you want to be really precise, you can actually grab a ruler and actually measure what you're doing. I do it by eyesight as to what I think looks roughly about right, and then I clip it down, fold it, and clip it down flat, okay? So I'll explain it on this side a little bit better, okay? So lining is flat. Obviously your mesh has excess. So 3 fingers if I want to, that's a measuring system, and then fold it down just like that. Of course, I've got this upside down. This is the bottom. I'm working this way because it's easier for me to work this way. Okay, and then clip it in place. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to baste that down. There is no right or wrong way of doing this. It just needs to be basted down flat. So if you didn't want to measure it at all, you just wanted to fold it however, you can. If you wanted it folded further here, you can. You want it folded closer, you can, okay? So we'll head back over to the sewing machine and we'll get that basted shut. Okie dokie. So let's get that bottom basted on. So I do normally like to, like I said before, like to have my mesh on the bottom, but with this one, because I've got all the clips in place and they're clipped this way, and that way I can, if I'm sewing with the mesh up, I can actually keep an eye on where all my my folds are to keep them all nice and flat and easy. So I do sew it with the mesh side up. This time it's actually not that hard to have it with the mesh side up because the mesh is pretty much already basted into place. Like there is not as much stretch in it anymore. Well, there's still stretch obviously where there should be stretch, but where you're sewing, it's much easier to maneuver even if I've got the mesh side up. So yep, that's all basted down. So let's keep moving on. Okay, we're moving on to the zipper tab. So grab your ZB zipper. And if you haven't already, make sure you singe the ends. It's just good housekeeping. If my light wants to work. Go. And if you haven't already, make sure you insert your zipper pull. Go. Now grab your zipper tab lining B3. And we're going to cut that in half. Then going to line it right sides together with the zipper tape. And we're going to sew it on with a 3/8 seam allowance, okay? So just along there with a 3/8 seam allowance. Now, after we've sewn it down with the 3/8 seam allowance, Yep, after we've sewn that together with a 3/8 seam allowance, we're going to open it up. We're going to fold about 3/8 down on the back, and then we're going to match it up with the stitch line. But I'll talk you through it when we're over at the sewing machine, okay? So follow me over to the sewing machine. Okie dokie, so let's get this zipper tab sewn together. So it is with a 3/8 seam allowance. Here we go. And the other side as well. There we go. Now that that's sewn on with the 3/8 seam allowance, we're going to turn it right side out and we're going to fold it back and top stitch. So I'm going to fold it back, seam press it, and then you're going to fold this up by 3/8 of a seam allowance. So if you need to measure, you can measure it, but you're folding it by about 3/8. And then you are going to match the folded edge with your seam, flatten all of that, and then top stitch around the whole perimeter of that zipper tab. And we're doing that on the other side as well. And there we go. And then, so now we're just going to top stitch that, and we're going to top stitch around the whole perimeter of that little tab there, okay? Then the other side. Okie dokes, that's our zipper tab all done. So let's head back over to the overhead and we'll keep moving on. Okay, so now that we've finished the ZB zipper, we're going to grab our zipper pocket lining. Now, I don't think I mentioned this before, but I'm actually using two different fabrics, okay? The reason being is I want this beautiful one to be facing outwards when you open the bag, but on the inside it's just a white base. So on the other side, the side that actually faces into the toiletries bag, I want a waterproof fabric, okay? So that's why I've done this. Well, this is waterproof as well, but this is, I guess, more waterproof. This is water resistant. I don't know. Anyway, that's what I'm doing, okay? So if there is a front and back, I am working with the front piece first, and this is my back piece, okay? So first of all, I'm going to find the center point of this pocket piece, the zipper pocket piece. I'm also going to find the center point of my zipper. Go. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to match my zipper to my zipper pocket, to my zipper pocket, right sides together. Bearing in mind, this is my front piece, so I want my zipper to open and close this way, okay? So if you are thinking of if you have a front and back like I do, make sure you think about your zipper open and close direction, okay? So for me, I want it opens this way, closes this way. That's how I want it, okay? And then center to center, right sides together. And then we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew that down with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay. And then after we've sewn that down with our 1/4 inch, we're going to open it up and we're going to top stitch it with a 1/8 seam allowance. After we've done that, we're grabbing the other side and we're doing the same with the other side. So right sides together to the other side of the zipper tape, 1/4 inch seam allowance, open it up, top stitch. Okay, but I will talk us through that over at the sewing machine. So let's head over there. Okie dokie. So we're sewing this down with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, it's up to you whether you sew from the edge or just along the zipper. Okay, so really we should be sewing just along the zipper. One of my tester makes I did sew from the edge, not gonna lie. And that actually helped me create a really beautiful line to help me turn it right side out and top stitch. But of course, then you run the risk of actually being able to see your stitches, which you don't want when the bag is finished, okay? Okay, so That's all sewn together. So after that, what we're going to do is just open that up. I'm going to trim my threads for once. Okay. Then we're going to open it up, right sides up. I like to give it a really good press, especially because it's not sewn all the way to the edge. So by giving it a really good press, I'm helping everything sit as it's supposed to sit. Okay, and then we're going to top stitch. There we go. Now that that's top stitched, we are going to grab our second piece. So for the other side, go. Okay, and then we're grabbing the second piece and we're doing the same thing on the other side. So right sides together with the zipper, center to center. And then we're going to sew that on, just like we did on the other side, with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so let's bring that machine back in. Okay, and like I said, we are sewing this on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Go, and then open it up and top stitch. There we go, all done. So now that that's all done, what we're going to do is we're going to match these fabrics wrong sides together and match those edges all together and clip it in place. Okay, go. So we should have something that looks like this. And then now we're going to baste those 3 raw edges together with a 1/8 seam allowance. Go. So now we should have what looks like a zipper pocket. There we go. Look at that. So you've got a zipper pocket, opens up. Ta-da! Okay, so now what we're going to do before moving forward, I'm just going to clean up some of these loose threads because they're everywhere. Okay, and then what we're going to do is now we're going to grab some bias tape or binding, whatever you're using. I'm using fold over elastic, and we are just going to cover that raw edge at the bottom. Okay, so we're just going to bind that bottom edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I don't pre-attach my binding. I bind as I go. If you've never seen how I bind before, this is the first video you've watched of mine. I do have a full video on how to bind with fold over elastic, so feel free to check it out. But otherwise, yep, I don't clip. My fold over elastic is on the reel. I don't even cut it to size normally, and I just maneuver it as I go, and that's how I tend to get the best I guess binding outcome. So yep, so we're just binding that on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance just to cover that raw edge. All done. Okay, so now that that's all done, let's head back over to the overhead and we'll keep moving on. Okay, next up we're moving on to the flap. So first of all, grab your flap exterior. If you haven't already adhered your stabilizer on, you can get that adhered on. So if, like me, you are using a non-adhesive, so just a sew-in, a nice little trick is just a little bit of double-sided tape, just to hold it down. Okey-dokey. Now, once that's down, if you wanted to do an exterior label tag, Jassy has given us instructions on where to install it now, so you can do that if you would like. I don't have any external logo tags, so I am not doing that. So put this aside and let's move on to the grab handle. Now, you might ask, do I have to do this two-tone grab handle? Can I just do webbing to make this a quicker, easier sew? Yes, you can, okay? I really love the two-tone webbing. I think it looks, two-tone grab handle, I think it looks really beautiful. It just makes, it elevates the bag a little bit. But if you wanted to do just webbing, one of the testers, Chris, for her second make, she did a webbing grab handle. So go check it out. It should be on the Tester Make blog on the Sewfisticated Craft website. So go have a look if you wanted to. Now, if you are doing the two-tone, that's what we're doing now. So first of all, decide which is going to be on the top and which is going to be on the bottom. So I'm going to have this one on the top. So what that means is you'll have just a little bit of that green peek through and the main would be of this, okay? So on the piece that you're going to have on the top, draw a line on the back right along the middle. So I've done that off camera, woohoo! And for the one that you are going to have on the base, you are drawing 2 lines from either side of the long edges in, okay? So I've already drawn that off camera as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab some double-sided tape, stick it down and fold our long edges in to meet those points or those lines that you just drew. The reason I'm using 2 different types of double-sided tape, if anyone is wondering, is this one here is my 1/8 double-sided tape, and it is made for sewing machines. It's a lot nicer, beautiful double-sided tape. Problem with it is I have to import it in from the US, so it's quite expensive. So I use it sparingly. And the other one's just a cheap double-sided tape that I know isn't in the seam allowance. Okay, so for the main one that we want seen, we are matching those long edges in to the center. Like that. Oh, here's a little tip as well, something that I like to do. It's not part of the instructions, but I like to quickly mark the center of the short edge on this, the bottom piece, okay? This top piece, you know where the center is because you've literally drawn a line on it. And that one, I just like to quickly mark it just so I know where it is, okay? And then we are matching the long edges into your drawn lines. There we go. Okay, and now that they're both like that, what we're going to do is we're going to have the one for the bottom right side down, so wrong side up, right along the center. I'm going to do another bit of double-sided tape. And then I'm going to match the top one onto it, wrong sides together, and I'm matching the center points. So see how I'm doing there where I'm just seeing where that center point is. And then this side as well, match that center point to it. So what that should do is help me get a beautiful and even, ta-da, edging along my grab handle. That's so beautiful. Oh, I love it. Okay, so now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I am going to quickly measure. Jassy's got one measurement for us that we have to measure in from here up. So I'm going to quickly measure that. Now, here's a little tip for you. So obviously I can use a vinyl safe pen and mark it that way. But what I've been doing is using painter's tape because I love painter's tape. No, that sounded really weird, but yeah, so let me quickly measure it and I'll put the painter's tape down so I can show you what I mean. Okay, I'm back. So I've just measured it. So the measurement is from the short edges in and my measurement comes to here. Okay, so I've just used painter's tape literally on the other side to mark out where that marking is. So now, and the reason I haven't used the pen on this is because if you can see, like, this top has a lot of different colors, and so sometimes the pen might not be super noticeable, but with painter's tape I can't miss it, okay? And painter's tape comes off really easily. So I do this with like fabric, with vinyl, It's my newest tip. Love it. Okay. Anyway, and what we're now going to do is we are going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch just along those two long edges. Okay, so we're just going to top stitch just along there and along there with a 1/8 seam allowance, starting and ending at that marking. Okay, so follow me over to the sewing machine and we'll get that top stitched. Okie dokie, so we're back over at the sewing machine. So let's get this sewn down. So remember, we're not sewing into past that where the painter's tape is. And sorry if you see my head, I'm just ducking in to really give myself a nice, to make sure I'm starting as close to that point as I am. Okay, and we are just top stitching. So this is with a 1/8 seam allowance. Sorry if you see my head, I'm just trying to check my placement here of the needle. There we go. And then just on the other side as well. Sorry if you see my head. Like I said, I'm just trying to check my placement. Okie-dokie. So there we go. So that's all top stitched. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull my front threads across to the back, get it tied off, and then we will meet back over on the overhead and we will keep going. Okie dokie, so we've just done that grab handle. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get the grab handle sewn onto our flat piece on the exterior. So, So if you weren't filming a tutorial, you would be able to bring a ruler onto, well, I would, if I wasn't filming a tutorial, I would bring my ruler on and I just plonk my ruler right there. And so that way I have a completely straight surface to go off, my quilting ruler, but I can't. So instead I've marked my markings. I don't know how well you can see them. They're just right here and over on the side right here. And so that's the marking for where my grab handle needs to go. And what we're going to do is you're going to look for your center of where your grab handle is. So that's my center. See, this is why I mark centers. And the center of your grab handle should match that marking. So can we see? Yep. So that's the marking. That's my center of the grab handle. And I'll clip that in place right there on that side. And same thing over on this side. Okay. So your center of the grab handle should match that marking. Clip that right into place, just like that. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is you are going to mark a measurement in from the outside. Okay, so surprise, surprise, I am again using painter's tape. So I know where that marking is because it is exactly the same as to where I sewed to. So before my painter's tape was over this side, this time I'm going to stick it, sorry if you see my head, over on this side, because this time I'm going to sew from the outside in to this mark, okay? And I'm using painter's tape for the mark. I'll grab a longer piece for this side, okay? So again, there is a marking in the pattern. You can measure it, or if you trust your stitches like I do, you can use your stitches as that mark because that's how far your stitches should have come to when you top stitch. So I am using my stitches just so you know. That's how overconfident I am with my own sewing. Okay, there we go. So what we're going to do now is we are going to sew an X box. X box? Well, I don't feel like that's the right word, but a box stitch. Okay, so we are going in, across, back down, cross, there, cross. Okay, around there to hold it all down, and the cross stitch is coming up to that marking that you measured and marked out right there, and that's how you'll get the grab handle sewn down. So follow me over to the sewing machine and let's get that. Do you know what? I have to redo this because someone's done something silly. If your grab handle is directional like mine, welcome to my life, make sure it's facing the right way. I had mine upside down. Okay, so this is the top, this is the bottom. Make sure it's facing the right way before you clip it into place, please. Oh, Sammy Sam. There you go. Okay, Now that that is actually done and done properly, let's head back over to the sewing machine and let's get that grab handle sewn down with an X box. Okay, so follow me over. Okay, so let's get this sewn down. Now we are doing box stitches. Whoopa. Making sure you have your hump jumper at the ready, okay? Because obviously there is a fair bit of height differences here as you go. And we're sewing this down on the edges with a 1/8 seam allowance. Actually, it's probably a little bit more than 1/8, but sorry if you see my head. There we go. It's me poking into making sure I'm right at the spot that I want it to be at that, whatchamacallit? Painter's tape. Okay. Now that I've gotten up and around and back down, now I'm going to come back up and I'm going to come up to that top corner there. So for my reinforcing X stitches, I don't need my painter's tape anymore, so I can take that off because I was just using that as a marker reference. So I'm just lining up my stitches to make sure I'm in a straight line. Sorry, my head is coming in. And yep, that is how close I get because I want to double check and I want to get that hole and all of that stitches as neat as possible. So that's why I do that. And then we come back across and then come back down onto that other side. Go. Once I've made it, then just stitching back up here and closing it off. There we go. There we go. And that is my beautiful X-box cross stitch, whatever we want to call it. I don't know. Okay. And then I'm just going to do the other side quickly as well, exactly the same way. Pick up my hump jumper first because I dropped it. Okay. Here we go. So that's both of those X boxes are done. Now, if you would like to, you can quickly install some rivets as well. So install them wherever you like. I think I'm going to do it because why not? Okay, so I will probably do it somewhere centered along the strap and then probably about 1/4 inch down, so probably about here, and I'll do that on this side as well, centered and about 1/4 inch down. There we go. So I'll get those rivets installed and then we will meet back over at the overhead. Okay, so now that we've got that grab handle on, I've just done the rivets, so that's all good. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to attach the lining of the flap to the exterior of the flap. Okay, so we're going to match them wrong sides together and clip it all into place. There we go. Now that that's clipped into place, we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to baste it all together. Okay, now I'm going to cheat and I'm going to add one extra step now as well. So normally after you baste it together, you'll then add your hook. I am going to, actually I will do that over there, but I'm just going to show you guys here because to be honest, the hook, I love the hook. The hook is so functional, but it gets caught all the time. So I'm going to put that on later. Well, after I baste this together. So after we baste this together, the lining and the external of the flap together, we're going to match the center of the hook tab to the center of the lining side and the top of that flap, just there, okay? Center to center on the lining side, okay? But let's get this basted on first, and then we'll attach the hook as well. Okay, so follow me over. Okie dokie, so let's get this flap, external and lining, basted together. Now, you would think the smartest thing is to have it exterior side down, and that's how I'm going to do it. Most of the time I do it lining side up, because I don't know why actually, and it's actually more effort, so I don't know why I've done that way every other time, but yeah. So we're just basting, so it's just with a basting stitch, so 1/8 seam allowance. There we go. So that's all basted together. And now that that's done, like I said, we're going to add the hook. So let's grab the hook over here. Yep. And like I said, we're matching the center of the hook to the center of the top, so the curved on the lining side, okay? Center to center, clip that in place, and then just baste that on. Okie dokie, that's all done. So let's head back over to the overhead and we will get on to the next step. Okie dokie, so that's your flap with the lining and basted on, and the hook as well. So next we're going to move on to attaching the zipper. So let's grab our, what is this? The ZA zipper? Yep, ZA zipper. First, what we're going to do is we're going to find the center point. So fold that zipper in half. Give it a good press. Sorry if you see my head. Go. Marked my center point, not beautifully, but it's there. You can see it, I think. I think so. I found a better pen. Okay, so it's marked and centered. Next, what we're going to do is separate that zipper tape. I know some of us are scared of that, but believe me, it's worth it. It'll be good. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to match the zipper tape right sides together with the flap exterior, okay? Matching the center to that top center as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to clip it all in place, starting from the top and slowly coming around. Yeah, clips in half. And then the other side. There we go. So once it's all clipped on, put the second side aside, don't lose it. Once it's all clipped on, we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and we're going to baste it on with a 1/8 seam allowance, okay? And then after we've done that, we're then going to bind that whole section with a 1/4 inch. But follow me over and let's get that basted on first. Okie dokie, so let's get straight into it. We are just going to baste that zipper tape on. The biggest tricky part for this, especially, is if you're using a hook. My hook gets caught on the edge of my table a lot, so just be wary of where your hook is. Yeah, so it is the biggest frustration for me, is the hook getting caught. Okay, so we're just basting that zipper tape on, so just a 1/8 seam allowance. This is just a basting stitch, so I'm not worried so much about my unlevel, like my height adjustments and everything over my ginormous, what's that called? Handle. But I like to watch out as I do this bit as to which parts have problem with bulk or anything like that, so that I know to watch out for my hump jumper when I bind. Let's move my stuff out of the way. Give me more space, huh? Okie dokie, so that's all done. So double check that you are happy with how that's zipper basted on, especially around those two corners, that there's no puckering, that it's all beautiful. And if you are happy with it, we're going to move on to binding it. So my choice of binding is fold over elastic. I am using 3/4 inch for this make. That tends to be my favorite width, to be honest. So that's what I am using. But if you are using really thick materials, or you are quite new at it and you want to use a wider one, do so. But for me, I find 3/4 is a really easy width for me to work with most of the time. Okay, so we are binding with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm starting my binding a little bit higher up than where my my actual fabric starts. So the part of the zipper tape that will probably be cut off. The reason being is it just helps me get it started nicely, really. Okay. So where it comes up here to the handle, that's going to be a tricky part because the handle is obviously thicker. So I need to be wary that my fold over elastic will cover on the bottom. And if you need a hump jumper, make sure you have it at the ready. I don't think I do though. Again, my hook is just doing it now. It just got caught on the edge of my table. So make sure you know where your hook is and that it's not stopping you. So if your fabric somehow suddenly stops moving, it's probably the hook. Check your hook. Something to be wary about as well, my zipper pulls are pretty far in the middle, but if your zipper pulls are really close to the edge, move them aside before you bind, just to give yourself more room so you don't accidentally sew on the zipper pulls or have your needle hit the zipper pull and break. Okie dokies, that's all done. So I'm just going to quickly pull it out. I'm going to double check that everything caught. So let's have a look. My corners all caught. All caught. Beautiful. Okay, that is perfect. So I'm happy with that. So let's head back over to the overhead and we'll keep moving on. Okay, so now we're going to work on our top panel exterior, our front panel exterior. So these should be facing this way, but you get the idea. So the first thing I like to do is mark centers because I like marking centers. So I'm just going to, on the external, mark the bottom center here, as well as that center on the curve bit there as well. Okay, there we go, just like that. Now that I've marked the centers, I'm going to match the lining and the exterior wrong sides together, and I am going to clip it in place. And what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine. We're going to baste this together, but we're not going to baste this bottom section, okay? I'll bring that up a little. So we're not basting around here. So I'm starting roughly around where this purple clip is, and I'm going to baste all the way around, do the inside, back up, across and down to roughly where the pink one is, okay? And then we're going to leave this bit open, okay? So follow me over to the sewing machine and let's get that basted down. Okie dokie, so let's get this basted together. Like I said, I'm starting roughly around where that purple peg is, so like that corner bottom edge is completely untouched. Okay. Oh, sorry, I just knocked you guys. Oh. And it's just a basting stitch, so just with a 1/8 seam allowance. If anyone's wondering why I have the lining side up and the exterior down while I'm basting this, it's because actually this vinyl is pretty good. There's no stretch to it, but if you ever work with any vinyls that have any stretch at all, when you're doing curves and corners like this, it's more prone to stretch and to curve out of shape, I guess. And so because I'm sewing with Sewfisticated twill on the lining, the twill doesn't stretch, it doesn't fray. It's a really beautiful fabric to work with. So I like to have that on the top and use that to guide me, and it helps keep all of my fabric really not stretching, I guess. I don't know how to say it. Oh. There we go. So that's all, well, not all basted together. I've left that bottom untouched like we said, so this could still open up easily like that. And let's head back over to the overhead. Okie dokie. So now that we've done all of that, we've basted the lining on, making sure not to touch that bottom. We're going to grab the second half of that zipper tape and we are going to match it. So we're going to match right sides together with the exterior as well, the center of the bottom there with your zipper tape. Okay, and then we're going to clip that zipper tape in place all the way up from the center to the top. No, this looks like a really weird way to clip. I understand it. I am a very weird clipper. If you've watched many of my other videos, you know that I am an awkward clipper at the best of times. I hate clipping things. I don't like clipping it. I find it easier to freehand sew without clipping. Truth be told, if I wasn't filming a tutorial, the way I sew this is I clip my center. I find my center, match the center point. And then I go over and I sew one side from center out. And then I come back and I do the other side upside down, center out. But I am doing it the mainstream way, which is clipping. So now that that's all clipped together, we're going to go over to the sewing machine. We're going to baste that all down. After we've basted it together, we're going to bind it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So follow me over. Okie dokie. So let's get this zipper tape basted on. So it is just a basting stitch, so just a 1/8 seam allowance. Making sure I thought no, beautiful. Okie dokie, that's all done and basted together. So next what we're going to do is our binding. So before I bind, I'm just going to double check that I'm happy, especially around these corners. So I'm just looking at the back, at the front, I'm looking at the zipper tape, making sure I've got no like wrinkly bits or anything, but no, it's beautiful, it's perfect. So straight into binding. So if you are using fold over elastic, make sure you singe it. It's just good housekeeping. And then we'll just go straight in and we are binding with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Let me just clear these excess threads off at the start. Now you'll notice I'm starting my binding a little bit lower than where my where you know the actual fabric is. The reason being is it's just the starting point is always your messiest point when it comes to binding, your start and end points. So if I start a little bit higher up or a little bit lower down where it's not going to be seen and it's not important, then by the time I get to the part where it will be seen, it's going to be beautiful binding. Just throwing my binding on the floor. I don't know how everyone else sews these corners, but what I find works for me is just going tiny bit at a time. See how I'm kind of straightening that corner edge as I go, and then when it comes back out, it's all smooth still. But as I'm doing that, I'm just making sure that the bit that's under my seam allowance here is all completely flat. So that's for me, the easiest way to bind this section if you are struggling. And then, yeah, see, that's all beautiful now, and that's right up against it. Perfect. Okie dokie, so that's all binded. Now I'm just going to double check the back side to make sure everything, oh, pulling my threads out. Make sure everything is caught, which it is, and then we're just double checking these corners, making sure that it's beautiful and smooth and that there's no puckers or wrinkling, and there isn't. So I'm happy, it's beautiful. Let's keep moving on. Okie dokie, so we've got our flap all done and binded, and we've got the front exterior all done and binded. So next what we're going to do is we're going to put it together. So what we're going to do is we're going to match our zipper tape up, and then we're going to put our zipper pull on. So the way I find works easiest for me is align your fabrics, just like that. And then with the fabric aligned, then work out how far the zipper tape should go. So if you can see that, I don't know how to explain this better, but if my fabric's aligned, there we go, you can see that this one is higher by about two zipper teeth. So that means when I put the zipper on, I'll need this one to go on first by 2 zipper teeth before that one. Okay, and it might mean a little bit of maneuvering, a little bit of playing around, but just take your time, be patient with it. Okay, so that is 2 zipper teeth, so that is right. Not, oh, maybe that looks, maybe 2 zipper teeth, it doesn't, right. Okay, let's have a look. So we are supposed to use 2 zipper pulls, but I like to zip it up with just the one first, because that helps me get to this part to see if that is even on both sides. And as you can see, it's actually pretty good. So I'm happy. So now all I'm going to do is look at this one, check this one out too, and then put this zipper tape on, the zipper pull on, sorry, I should say. It's not even close to right. Or maybe. Oh no, that's right. Here we go. And get those zipper pulls over to the middle. Now what we're going to do is we are going to flatten our binding to either side, and then we're going to baste those ends open. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly clip that open. Not bind it, sorry, baste it open. What am I talking about? Okay, quickly clip that open. Okay, now before I go over to the sewing machine to baste it, I'm going to quickly grab my back exterior piece. So that is, again, it's a trapeze shape. Trapeze, is that it? So the top is shorter than the bottom. I'm just going to measure up to see if these are the same width. That's how we're double checking to make sure that's right, and it is. And if it isn't for whatever reason, you can then kind of like play around with the zipper tape a little bit when you're to make it either wider or skinnier, but that's if you need to fix it. Otherwise, mine is perfect. So we're going to head over to the sewing machine, and we're just going to quickly baste that so that the binding is opened up to either side on the back, and then your zipper tape is closed shut. Okay, so let's head over, quickly do that, and then we'll come back and keep going. Okay, so let's get this zipper tape basted down. I like to do it lining side up because I want to make sure my binding is going the right direction. So there we go. And that's all it is. We're just Boop. Quick little baste. And the other side. Whoop, see, this is what happens when you're not thinking. Okie dokie. So basted that open. So let's head back over to the overhead and we will keep moving on. Okie dokie. So we've just basted that zipper and that's all good. So next what we're going to do is we're going to flip to the other side, lining side up. And on the bottom / top, whatever this bit is of the lining, where it is not sewn down, we're going to clip the exterior out of the way, just so that we don't accidentally sew it. And then after we clip the exterior out of the way, we're going to mark the measurements in the pattern instructions from the bottom up, or from the top down, just from this edge over. So the next thing we're going to do is bring in our zipper pocket. So with your zipper pocket, if like me, you have two different sides, one side that you want to be seen when your bag is open and the other side that's on the inside of the bag, the side that you want to be seen, that faces down, okay? So that faces down towards your lining and that would be the side that gets seen, okay? And then you're going to match the bottom of your zipper pocket to those marks that you just made. Okay, if you had a fabric safe pen or a heat erasable pen, I don't know, whatever it is, and you could actually just draw a line all the way across and then get rid of it later. I don't have anything at the moment that works for my fabrics, so that's why I only have the two marks on either side, okay? I'm just also quickly clipping these sides up here as well. It's not necessary, I just like to do it. I find it helps me keep everything in place a little bit easier and better while I do this part. Okay, and then, so because I don't have a line all the way across and I want to make sure that that all lines up and stays lined up, I'm going to clip this bottom bit. So I'm just getting this excess lining out of the way a little bit as I clip, okay? So I have these bigger clips and that kind of allows me to do that. If you have super long clips, even better. I don't know if you guys see in Jassie's instructions. She has like super duper long ones. I keep forgetting, but I need to ask her where she gets them from because I want them. Okay. There we go. And then so what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine. We're going to sew that bottom down with a 1/8 seam allowance. After we've sewn that down, we're then going to unclip the external sides and then we're going to close up, well, not close up, but we're going to sew these short ends of that zipper pocket down as well. Okay, so follow me over to the sewing machine. Okie dokie, so we're over at the sewing machine. So we're just going to sew the bottom of that zipper pocket down, making sure again, your exterior is completely out of the way. It is folded up. And if you are clipping like me, make sure you don't sew that excess lining as well, right? Like that's just my way of clipping it to make sure everything stays in place. Okay, and we are sewing it on with a 1/8 seam allowance. I don't know how well you guys can see it because obviously that keeps rolling up. Maybe I just need to give up on having it clipped. There we go. So that's all sewn down. And then once that bottom is sewn down, double check that it's pretty even, which it is. I'm just going to unclip that base. Not base, sorry, the external. And then with the external unclipped, I'm going to baste the short edges together. So the exterior, the lining, and the pocket will all be sewn together. Okay. Now, this isn't necessary, but when I am doing this, so while I'm basting this short edge, instead of coming up and then doing the other side, I actually just baste the bottom together as well. So the reason for me is, to be honest, I'm too lazy to stop sewing, cut the threads, yada, yada, yada. But also because I may as well baste this together. It makes it easier for me for the next step anyway. So I'm just basting along this line too. Okie dokie. That's all done. So let's head over to the overhead and we'll keep moving on. Okie dokie, so this is where we're up to. This is our flap. We've just got the zipper pocket done up on it. Remember, like I said, you wanted to make sure your zipper pocket is facing the right way. So if you wanted to double check it, open it up now. Ta-da! It's beautiful. Anyway, and what we're going to do now is we are going to attach the base. So grab your base pieces, which I have here. And you are going to get your base piece on the lining side. You're grabbing your base lining piece. And you are matching it right sides together, lining to lining, okay? So this is the lining to the lining. It should match perfectly. If it doesn't, it is a cutting error at this point for the bottom. So if it doesn't match properly, either recut it or clip it together center to center. That's your best way of making it work. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we are going to baste the lining on with a 1/8 seam allowance. Again, right sides together, lining to lining. Once that's done, we're going to grab our exterior piece of the base. We're going to clip it on the other side, so right sides together with the exterior. And we're going to sew that on with a 3/8 seam allowance. Then we're going to add our stabilizer, turn it right side out, top stitch and baste it all together. But let's get the lining on first and we'll get the rest done over at the sewing machine. So follow me over. Okie dokie, so we are basting the lining on. So this is just with a 1/8 seam allowance. Okay, now that the lining is on, we're then going to grab our exterior, match the exterior base to the exterior main, right sides together. Oh, if I can find my exterior piece. Move this a little bit to give us a little bit more space. So exterior to exterior on that same edge, right sides together. Okay, and then we're going to sew that down with a 3/8 seam allowance. Okie dokie. Once that's down, what we're going to do is we're going to trim off the seam allowances on the exterior just to help reduce bulk. Actually, not on the exterior. Let's just trim off all of that. Just like that. And then, I'm going to make myself some more room. And then we're going to attach your stabilizer. If you had a fusible, you might have attached it before. If you have a sew-in, you might attach it later on. So just work with your stabilizer, okay? So I'm using a Sewfisticated, so I'm just literally sticking it straight down. Super simple, nice and easy. And then going to turn the lining and the exterior right side out. And then we're going to top stitch. And then after we top stitch, we're going to baste around the perimeter to enclose your stabilizer and just really enclose this whole section, I guess. Okay, so let's bring the sewing machine in. Okay, so first of all, we are top stitching. And then after we've top stitched, we are just basting around the perimeter. Okie dokie. Now that that's all basted and top stitched, let's head back over to the overhead and we will keep moving on. Okay, so this is where we're up to. We have our front panel, our flap, and it's attached to the base, stabilizers in, exterior and lining basted. So now what we're doing is we are attaching the back pieces as well as, don't forget the stabilizer. Now, if I need to remind us again, this back piece is a trapeze shape. Is it trapeze? I still don't know. It's narrower at the top and wider at the bottom. So make sure, I like to just write a little T on the top so I remember. And so we're matching the bottom to the base, right sides together. So the lining, right sides together to the lining. We'll do the lining first, just like we did on the other side. And we're going to base that on with a 1/8 seam allowance. After we've basted the base on right sides together, we're going to attach the exterior, remembering we're going for the longer edge, the wider edge, so the bottom. And that will be right sides together with the exterior. We're going to sew all that together with a 3/8 seam allowance. Then we're going to attach your stabilizer if you haven't already. If it's a pre-fuse, then obviously fuse it. If it is a sew-in, then you can just sew it in even after you top stitch. But make sure you get your stabilizer in. And then we are top stitching. So let's head back over to the sewing machine and get that happening. Okie dokie, so we're over at the sewing machine. So first of all, we are basting the lining down. So that is, again, right sides together to the lining. Why am I basting so far up? It doesn't even make sense. So it's just a basting stitch, so just a 1/8. Okay, after the lining's basted on, we're grabbing our exterior. And we're going to match the exterior piece to the exterior of the base. Now, making sure you are using the bottom of the back piece, the back panel, so the wider side. If you cut this right, they should fit perfectly. So that's another good way to tell. If your back panel piece isn't wide enough, it means it's probably the top. So double check that. Okay, and we are sewing this together with a 3/8 seam allowance. I have things getting in the way of me. Once that is sewn down as well, we're just going to quickly trim off the bulk of those seam allowances in those corners. I'm going to make myself some space to attach the stabilizer. So like I've said before, I use a self-adhesive stabilizer. This is the Sewfisticated Heavy from Sewfisticated Supplies. Like you can see, I've marked a T on it too to make it easier for me to know what is happening. Go, stick it straight down. And then we're going to come back across. We're going to, let me just flatten that seam allowance first actually. And then we're going to top stitch and baste that shut. So let's bring the sewing machine back over and let's get that happening. Oh, I should just say as well quickly, you may notice that I still have the excess, what's that called? Fold over elastic there. That's because I like to do it at the end. So let's bring that sewing machine back in and we'll keep going. Okay. Top stitch. Hoping you guys can still see well. So I have to roll my bag up as like a little burrito to give myself enough room here. I could potentially come in the other way and have, you know, not have all this bulk here. But truth be told, with top stitching, I always prefer to go in this way. Maybe I should just learn to do it the other way so that I don't have to deal with the bulk, but I don't know. Ease of sewing isn't as important as how pretty my top stitch looks. Yes, that is vain, but it's also the truth. Let's head back over to the overview. I'll get that fold over elastic trimmed off and singed off, and we'll keep moving on. Okay, so this is where we're up to. If you noticed any weird editing, it's because I went into autopilot and I did something I shouldn't have done, so I've edited it all out. But if I didn't, I'm just mentioning this again. So with the back panel, you are top stitching, but you're not basting around the perimeter. You're top stitching, putting a stabilizer in, and then we come back up here, okay? So now that we're up here, what we're gonna do is we're turning it lining side, and we are actually, before we turn lining side, let's open our zipper pocket, flap pocket. So this is to make it easier later on to birth it. So just open it up. I never open it all the way, just a little bit, so the zipper is undone. Okay, so now that the flap is opened up and we're able to turn it later on, we're gonna flip over to the lining side. You're going to grab your back panel, the bit that we've left unbasted, and we're going to match it right sides together to the front panel, okay? And then we're going to clip it together. Truth be told, I like to match center to center, but I forgot to find my center on my lining, didn't I? Okay, and then we're centering it to centering it. I'm clipping that in place, okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to baste that edge that we've just clipped together with a 1/8 seam allowance, okay? Now, after we've done that, oh, I said we were going to sort this out and I forgot in the whole midst of doing all that, I completely forgot. So if you still have excess fold over elastic from your mesh pocket, cut it off. We don't need that. And then, of course, fold over elastic. Every time you cut it off, you singe it. It's just not my day today, is it? Okie doke. And then, so after we've basted that lining to lining, we're going to wrap this all around. And we're going to bring the exterior up. And then we're going to clip it together and sew the exterior down as well with, again, a 3/8 seam allowance. We're then going to trim the excess seam allowance like we've done before, and then we're going to birth it. Now, this is or can be a bit tricky because depending on your material, so obviously this is all faux leather. So as you can see, it does get quite thick, but it's definitely doable and it's definitely fine. So let's head over to the sewing machine and we'll get this basted on. Then we'll do the external. Okay, let's go. Okie dokie. So let's get the linings basted together first of all. So this is just a basting. So just a 1/8 seam allowance. Nice and easy. No stress there. The trickiest part of this is just that it's a little bit bulky. So you might find that you just have to kind of, I guess, hold it a little bit more. Like you're seeing, I'm not normally this hands-on a sewer. There we go. Okey-doke. No. So now that that lining is basted on, like I said, this is probably one of the trickier parts for this section here, and it's just because of how much material there is. So now that that lining is basted on like that, we're now needing to loop this exterior over to baste that on as well. So we kind of just need to roll everything up to make it fit. It's actually not that tricky. It's just moving it around and yeah, getting it in, making it fit. Oh, that's a better way to say it, isn't it? Okay, so once we've clipped that all together, we're going to bring the sewing machine back in and we're going to baste it all together with a, sew it all together with a 3/8 seam allowance. So let me just maneuver this, make sure I'm happy with it all. Okay, so come back in. Okay, and then we are sewing this down with a 3/8 seam allowance. So it is like a little burrito. One thing to watch out for is that your fabric isn't in the seam allowance, okay? So it shouldn't be, but it's always worth saying because the one time that you don't check is the one time that you're going to get the other parts of your fabric cut in, stuck in there, okay? Okay, so 3/8 seam allowance. I can feel something there. No, we're good. It's one of the reasons why I like having my finger. I know like some people have said like it gives them anxiety seeing my finger so close, but it's because I like to be able to feel everything. Something definitely happened there that I'm not happy with. I think a zipper's there. So I'm just pulling that out. Quickly double check. It's my hook. My hook was kind of under there. So I'm just shoving my hand in there, moving everything out of the way. So that's all it was. So if something does happen like that, it's so easy to fix. Like you saw how easy it was for me to unclip it and just do it. I like to leave this stuff in here for you guys. So if you guys encounter the same problems I do, you know how to fix it. Okie doke. So we're going back in at the 3/8. So if like me, you have to go back in, I always go back a little bit because I don't know how much you guys saw when I got to that point. My seam allowance came in by about 1/8. So I just go back a little bit where my seam allowance is still perfect. and just start from there. There we go. So that's all done, sewn together. Here we go. So we're going to cut off those corners. Should be able to do this next bit here. I think I've got enough space. Let me just beep. Okay, here we go. So this is our little bundle of joy at the moment. So what we're going to do is we are going to birth it. Now, anyone who has watched my videos before know that I am not good at birthing, and so be prepared for this to be really sad to watch, to be honest. Okay, we did it. She's birthed. And go. Just spend a little bit of time to get some of these wrinklies out. There we go. So that's birthed out now. Okay, so now we're going to top stitch that joined seam. Okay, so what we're going to do, and one of my friends have argued with me with this in the past. So we can't top stitch this direction. Well, I guess you can. To be honest, I have actually done one this direction. So like exterior up, so you are actually top stitching. If you are doing it this way, it's making sure everything is out of the way. So mainly these two bits, okay? So you can top stitch this way. It does work. Jassy has to top stitch lining side up. So like this, so the pocket side up or the lining side up. So that way you can actually see everything that you're doing, and you just go kind of underneath these bits instead of these bits getting out of the way. So of course we are doing Jassy's instructions, so I will do it Jassy's way. But if you are a stickler for you have to top stitch along the external, you know who you are. I know you're watching this. You can do it that way. I have done it. It's just making sure that your little side panels here are out of the way, okay? So let's get this in and let's top stitch her. La 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 la. Okay. So bring it in. I like to have my zipper a little bit higher up so it's not too close to the edge there. I find that it makes it a little bit trickier to maneuver, but it makes my stitches prettier. And we already know my view on that. Pretty stitches are more important than a easy sew. Okay, as you come over here, as you can see, this is getting in the way. I'm hoping you guys can see easily enough. It's quite tricky for me to get you guys in here, but I'm just smoothing this lining down here. And then, there we go. And here we go, reach the end, pull it off. There we go. And then, now all we have left to do is just baste these two little sections shut on the edge of the back panel, because obviously we did not baste that, remember? That did not happen. So this is just a basting, so again a 1/8. If you were using a sew-in stabilizer for the back panel, you can insert it now as well if you wanted. Well, not if you wanted to, you have to install it now. By now your stabilizer needs to be in. Okay. Okay, here's a little hint for us as well. So when we're basting this, I don't know if you noticed, so this is me, my hands here. I'm holding this side up to create a flatbed because my machine isn't a flatbed. If I don't and it flops, what will happen here is my lining comes away a little bit more from my exterior, which it's not a problem because it's still all well within that seam allowance, so it's still going to get caught. But the problem is, if I hold it up and I hold it taut, then when my bag is finished, it gives me a tighter lining so that I don't have a saggy lining. Some people, if you have saggy linings, that could be a reason why. Okay, there we go. So that is, I'll move this away a little bit because after this we're moving on to a different section. That is our main section all done. So if like mine, yours is vinyl, a good thing I like to do right now, because we're about to move on to the side panels, that's going to take a little bit of time. So what I like to do now is I like to give it a nice little blast with a a what's it called? Hairdryer, warm air, and just kind of use some warm air to kind of get rid of these creases a little bit. So I use some warm air on it, and then I just put something heavy or something on it to kind of just get rid of, you know, the wrinkles a little bit while I'm doing something else. The other option you can do if you don't have anything heavy, that you can, well, I kind of put this on my ironing board and then put something heavy on top of that. If you can't do that, another thing you can do is shove this full of like beach towels or some sort of towels or something to help it hold its shape. And while you've got its shape all perfect, then use a hairdryer to blow it, get rid of the wrinkles, and it'll help sit it better and get rid of these birthing wrinkles. Okay, but she's beautiful. I'm gonna put her aside and we'll keep moving on to these side panels next. Let's go. Okie dokie, so we're moving on to the side panel assembly, and we're going to be starting on the zipper gusset. So if you didn't want to do a zipper gusset or a side panel pocket, this is optional. You can, well, it's not optional, it's part of the bag, but you can skip it to make a quicker, easier make. So if you were to do that, skip through this. I do have all of my videos are chapterized, so you can just jump to the right chapter and skip all of this section if you're not doing this, okay? So if you are, we are grabbing our ZE zippers as well as our zipper gusset exterior and lining, okay? So if you haven't already, insert your zipper pulls and singe your zipper ends. It's just good housekeeping. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our lining. I'm going to match the lining, the right side of the lining to the wrong side of the zipper, and the right side of the exterior to the right side of the zipper. So that means this is the right side, this is the right side, and it's sandwiching the zipper tape. And we're going to clip that together. And what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew that together with a 3/8 seam allowance. After we've done that, we're going to do the same on the other short edge, okay? So we just make sure you don't, your zipper tape isn't tangled, it's all still facing the right way. And then you're going to do exactly the same thing, clip that all together, and also sew this side together with a 3/8 seam allowance. Okay, once you've done that, we're going to birth it, and then we are going to birth it. Can't really birth it while I'm in here, but turn it right side out. We're going to insert the stabilizer and top stitch the perimeter, but I'll show you that over at the sewing machine. I'll quickly get the second piece or clipped up to, and then we can get moving. So let's head over to the sewing machine. Okie dokie. So let's get this sewn on. So we are sewing the zipper gusset on together with a 3/8 seam allowance. Now, if you wanted to base the lining down first and then do the exterior, you definitely can. Typically, that's how I do it most of the time because I'm not the bestest at clipping fabric, in case that wasn't obvious. If you need a hump jumper, make sure you grab it, the one side and then the other side. There we go. And once that's in, we're going to turn it right side out. Actually, before we turn it right side out, sorry, we are going to quickly trim off just the exterior seam allowances, okay? So don't touch the zipper, don't touch the lining, just that exterior. We're just going to cut those corners off just to help reduce the bulk in the seam allowance. So again, zipper and lining is untouched. It's just the exterior. Go. And then we're going to turn it right side out and insert your stabilizer. I'm not doing a stabilizer for this section here. Sorry, Jessie. Because I'm using a vinyl and it's quite a small gusset. I don't need it. So I've realized that with my last one. So I am not doing a stabilizer here, but otherwise, if you need a stabilizer, make sure you get your stabilizer on. And then we are just going to top stitch around the perimeter after you've gotten your stabilizer in. And we are doing the same thing on the second zipper gusset. Okay, so sew that gusset on with a 3/8, trim the seam allowances, and then birth it and insert your stabilizer, and then top stitching around the perimeter. Okie dokie. So that is both of your zipper gussets done. So let's head back over to the overhead. Okay, we're moving on to the mesh pocket. We are doing our E6 and E7 mesh pockets. You'll notice that I've got two different colors for my E6 mesh pockets. That's because I am doing two different colors for the either side of the slip pocket on the side pocket. So for the inside main compartment, it's going to be one color, and for the side compartments, it's a different color. I've just done this more so to make it easier for you guys to follow, hopefully, if I explain it right. So that's what's happening. Okay, so first of all, we're going to grab one piece of our E6 mesh pockets, and we're going to grab some fold over elastic. Again, like we did on the other part of the fold over elastic, we're marking a center point, and then from that center point marking out on the right and the left, and we've marked marks there. And again, we are just matching this to the mesh. Okay, so center to the center, and then the edge to the mark on one side, and then again on this side as well, the edge to the mark on the other side. Okay, and like we did before on that back divider pocket, we're just going to sew this all in place, stretching as we go, and then it will create that beautiful ripple effect, I guess. So I'm going to do that with all four pieces of the E6 piece and the two E7 pieces as well. So I'm going to do that with all of that and the fold over elastic. Okie dokie, so those are all clipped into place. So let's head over to the sewing machine and let's get the fold over elastics sewn down. So it would be sewn with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but follow me over and let's get going. Okie dokie, so we have our mesh pockets. This is done the same way that we did that other mesh pocket on the back panels. So make sure you start in the excess bit, and we're sewing with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then stretch it to make it fit. There we go. Now I've still got my excess fold over elastic there. I will get that sorted later. I've also not singed it yet, but I will get that sorted. Okay, so that's what we're doing with all 6 of these mesh pockets. So 1/4 inch, start at the excess and stretch nicely with even pressure as you go. There we go. So that's all done. So let's head back over to the overhead and we will keep moving on. Okay, so let's get the D-ring now installed onto the side panel exterior. Now, at the beginning, I said I was using sky blue webbing. I did change my mind. I've gone off to purple. Okay, so that's why the webbing color change. Now, first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to adhere your stabilizer, whatever your stabilizer is. Mine is a sew-in, so I'm just going to, like I did on the flap, just put a bit of double-sided tape down and stick it straight down. But get your stabilizer on, however you would normally attach it. Oh, and I almost forgot. I've said this before, but the D-ring is optional, okay? So if you do not think you would need D-rings because you are using this just as a toiletries bag, you will not be attaching a strap to it at all. This isn't necessary, okay? So feel free to skip to the next chapter if you are not doing the D-ring connector, okay? So once you've got your stabilizer on, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark a mark from the top down, okay? There's a measurement in the pattern and we're marking it top down. Now, you may have noticed I've marked center points top and bottom on my side panel. I just like to do it. I think it's good housekeeping. We use it all the time. Another mark to quickly mark now, probably should have marked it even before you did the stabilizer if you're using a really thick stabilizer, is the center points on the edges. So I'm just matching my top and bottom center points and then finding it that way if I know where I've put my scissors. Okay, I'm back. So, and I'm just marking that on both the pieces and on both of those side edges. Okay, this is for later on. I like to do that now because sometimes after you get your materials get quite thick, or I've noticed mine get quite thick, or sometimes if I'm using a really thick stabilizer, I find it hard to find the centers later on. So that's why I like to do it now when there's not much on it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so all the centers are marked. Okay, so first of all, we're marking a mark, and the marks in the instructions, it's from the top down, and I've just drawn, I've done it on both. I don't know, I think this one you probably see a little bit better. That silver line right there. Okay, and what we're going to do, we're going to grab our webbing, we're going to get a D-ring, we're going to insert the D-ring into the webbing. On the wrong side of the webbing, we're going to put some double-sided tape down. There is a measurement Jassie's got on there as to roughly how much. I definitely don't have as much as she's asked for, I'm pretty sure, based off eyeballs, but anyway. And then what we're going to do is we are going to match the bottom of that webbing to the bottom of, I'm just making sure that I like to do it like this so that I can see where the center is on the top as well, so that this keeps completely still. And then I'm actually going to fold this webbing down to meet that line. There we go. So that that's exactly where it's meant to go. And then make sure your D-ring is also straight back into that spot right there. Just like that. There we go. Now, if you would like to, now's a good time to quickly take that mark away, especially if you are using removable pen like me. The quicker you get it off, the easier it comes off. There we go. And there's that. And I'm just going to do the same thing quickly on the other side as well. Something that I did forget to mention, so hopefully you guys have watched me enough to remember this. Make sure you had singed your webbing on the edges, okay? It's just good housekeeping. There we go. Okie dokie. So that's all down. Now what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine. And we are going to sew it down. So we're going to go around the whole webbing with a 1/8 seam allowance, so up, across, down, as close to the D-ring as you can. And then we're also going to do a cross box stitch around here as well, just to help tight it all down and make it nice and pretty. Now Jassie has a suggestion of about 1 1/4 inch crossbox. So if you like to mark that down, you can. Another tip, I know I did this before, I like to mark it down with painter's tape if I wanted to, but for these ones, to be honest, I like to just measure it as I go at the sewing machine. Okay, so follow me over to the sewing machine and let's get this sewn down. Okie dokie, so let's get this webbing and D-ring sewn down. So we're doing a 1/8 seam allowance. I'm starting from the bottom. Oh, quick tip. So something that I like to do is try to match my thread to my webbing as closely as possible. This obviously isn't a good match. I do have a match that matches the purple much nicer, but whenever I've done that, you guys can't see my stitches. So I am using a slightly lighter purple, which honestly goes against everything that I like to do when it comes to this step, okay? Because when you use a thread that matches your webbing, you hide any mistakes a lot more. Okay, so we're sewing all the way up to the D-ring as close as you can get without it becoming impossible to sew. Then you are coming across. Make sure if you need a hump jumper, have it at the ready. I think I'm okay. Might see my head, excuse me. Okay, and then come back down. Now, when you come back down, I don't know how well you can see it. I am completely on my D-ring, so that's why I definitely need my hump jumper. Okay, now there is a measurement. I think it's 1.25 inch is how far Jassy wants us to come down. So I'm going to quickly grab my ruler and I'm going to measure roughly how far that comes. I'll be 2 seconds. Okay, I'm back. Can't find my pokey stick, so I am using my seam ripper. The seam ripper is holding exactly where that 1.25 inch is, which my thumb is now doing, my finger is now doing. There we go. Yeah, I'm really annoyed with myself. I used to have an amazing ruler that is a 8 inch by 1/2 inch ruler that I got from my friends at Brymax over here in Australia, and it's the perfect ruler to have by your sewing machine when you're doing this kind of stuff, but I broke it. I have a new one coming, don't worry, but I broke it. Okay, so like you saw, I just went across after I hit that 1.25 mark, and then come up to the top corner in a diagonal, go back across to the other side. Sorry if you see my head, I'm just double checking. Okay, and then come back across to that diagonal bottom there, okay? If you are wondering what I am doing with my seam ripper, I'm using my seam ripper as a guide to find a straight line. I normally do that, like I said, with my pokey, but my pokey has disappeared on me. Oh, that was really bad, Sammy Sam. I thought I had my hump jumper in, but I didn't. My hump jumper was not even remotely in the right spot. There we go. There we go. And then come straight back down. You may have noticed that, I don't know if you will notice actually, but most of that box as I went, I hand crank. The reason I hand crank is it makes it a lot slower, so I feel like it gives me a smoother, more beautiful finish. Okay, there we go. So that's that done. I'll give you guys a better look. Here you go. So that is my box. Like I said, like it's not bad. It's pretty nice. But if I used a thread that matched my webbing, you wouldn't see the cross, the reinforcing stitches, and it'll just look much neater. So that's something that if you have the ability to do it. That's my biggest tip for how to get the perfect crosses on your thing. Okay, so, and stop talking, and I'll just quickly get the second one done as well. There we go. So that's all done. Now, before I meet you guys over at the overheads, you are able to quickly install a rivet as well if you wanted to, if you are worried that this bag will be used for heavy things and you will be carrying it. So if you were to install a rivet, I normally just like it somewhere underneath this stitch line here and centered on the webbing. So I'll probably get one plopped on right about there. So probably about an 1/8 1/4 inch down, right centered there and centered in the webbing. So I'll do that with both sides and quickly install that rivet before I meet you guys at the overhead. Okay, so let's get the side panel external put together now that we've finished that exterior and we've installed the rivets. If you're doing rivets, if you're not, it's fine. Okay, now I've got all of my lining pieces here at the moment because I wanted to show you guys this. So the pieces that we are working with at the moment are the ones for the external side, okay? So I am using a different color for the inside, for the main compartment. So not these ones, they're going to the side, okay? And then you will be left with 4 pieces. So the one that we're working on now is the one that is on the actual flap, okay? So the bit that opens. So if you have different colors or different themes, it's the one that's going on this piece, okay? So we're grabbing those 2 and putting the rest away. Okay, so what we're going to do first of all is we are going to match the lining to the exterior, wrong sides together. If you didn't install a D-ring, make sure that you do have your stabilizer in there already. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side as well. Put that all together. Okay, now after we've basted around the perimeter, so did I say we're going to do that first? Anyway, so we're going to go across the sewing machine. We're going to baste around the whole perimeter. After we've done that, we're going to mark a marking from the top down, the measurements in the patterns, and I've got it already drawn on here, if you can see. And what we're going to do is we are going to baste that elastic on. And then the other side as well. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm cheating a little bit. So in the instructions, Jassy does say, baste that together first before you clip that in place and baste it. I'm going to baste these 2 on now while I'm here and clipped it in anyway. But yeah, you don't have to. Okay, now after we've basted all of these together, so again, exterior, lining, elastic bands, stabilizer is in the middle already. We are going to also attach the mesh pocket. So I'm going to do it over there, but I'm just going to talk you guys through it here. So like we did with all the other times we've done the mesh pocket so far, we are going to get one side sewn down first, basted down first, then the other side, and then we are going to match center to center and then get that bottom sewn down as well. Okay, but follow me over to the sewing machine and let's get these basted together first, and then we'll move on to the mesh pocket. Okie dokie, so let's get these basted down. Like I said before, I am cheating and I am basting the, what's this called? The elastic on at the same time that I do the first basting stitch. So you don't have to do this. It's cheating. It's cheating. But yeah, so we're just basting. So it is just a nice and easy 1/8 seam allowance. Are my hands there? Does it block your views? No, we're good. Okay, that's the first side, and we're doing the same thing on the second side and get that basted down too. Still can't find my pokey stick. I'm hoping I find it before final assembly. There we go. Okay, so now that that's done, the next step that we're going to do is get these mesh pockets put on. Okay, so we're doing it just like we did on the back panel interior. So obviously that's your external, so we want it on the internal side. We're going to match both those short edges together, and then we're going to baste it down. And then after we've basted that down, we're going to get that center down too. So I am actually just going to get that center clipped on now and do all of that basting at the same time, because truth be told, this one doesn't have as big a gap as the other one. So it's not actually that hard to do it all in one go. So I'm going to do it because I am lazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm looking for the center of the mesh, and then I'm matching that center with the mesh with the center of the base like I've done before. And then just bringing the excess into a point, folding it and clipping it in place. This one, you'll notice, doesn't have as much excess as the back because this one isn't as gathered. It's not as big. Okay, so that's very normal. So that's what it's going to be, and I'm just going to baste around and get that mesh pocket basted on. I'm going to quickly clip the second one into place as well before I go and bring the sewing machine back in. Okey-doke. And we're just basting that mesh pocket down. And the second piece. There we go. That's all done. So let's head back over to the overhead and we'll get working on the other side panels as well. Okie dokie. So now that we've done the external side panel, let's move on to the internal side panel. Okay. So like I said before, I have two different color side panels. This one is for the side that is facing the main bag, I guess. Is that how I want to say it? The main bag, like facing the main compartments. Yeah, the main compartments, the main bag. So that is the purple base, and then for the seafoam, that's the one that's in my side panels. Okay. Now it's the same with my mesh pocket. So I've got a different color mesh pocket for each, but let's not confuse us all. Okay. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to grab one piece of your side panel that is facing the side panel, like the side pocket, and we're going to sandwich a piece of stabilizer in the middle, and we're going to grab one of the side panels that is facing the main compartment. Okay. If you have no differences between compartments, then I am over explaining this and you think I've lost the plot. But if you are doing different colors, this is why I'm explaining it in so much depth. Okay, there is no problems with doing all of these side panels in the same color. In fact, it makes the first make a lot easier. My first make, all the side panels were the same color, so there was no this needs to go this way, this needs to go this way. Okay, and so we're clipping them together, wrong sides together, with this stabilizer sandwiched in between them, just like that. And we're doing the same with the second piece as well. Okie dokie. There we go. So they're all clipped together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to the sewing machine and I'm going to base these together. Okay. Once I've done that, I'm going to do like what I did before on the other side, and I'm going to get the mesh sewn on as well. Okay. So I am doing purple mesh on the teal side, light blue mesh on the purple side. Again, it's just for color coordination to make it easier for you guys to see. And like we did on the other side, we're doing the side and the side, base those together first, and then sew the bottom down. Okay. And we're doing that on one mesh pocket on either side. Okay. So if you have color differences like I do, make sure you know which side is which, and then you're going to sew them on. But let's head over to the sewing machine and let's talk it through over there. Okie dokie. So let's get these two pieces basted together first, these lighting pieces. There is no reason why I am starting here. I just am, okay? I know some people sometimes ask, why did you start in that spot? There's no reason. It's just where I've decided to start. Okay. So it is just a basting stitch, so just 1/8. Nothing too stressful. We're just basting it together. Not that any of this is stressful. We're just making a bag. Okie dokie. That's one side done. Quickly do the other side. That's my thread holder. Okay. Sorry, I'm hoping I haven't knocked you guys too much. My thread stand decided to have a little grumpy fit. So I had to reset it all and hopefully didn't knock the camera too much. There we go, so that's all basted together. So now what we're going to do is we are going to add our mesh pockets to the picture. Maybe can I swivel us this way a little bit more, give us a little bit better of a view? Okay, so like I said, I have two different side panels because one is for facing in the main compartment, one is for facing in the side pocket. So I just have to make sure I am attaching the right ones to the right ones. So there is going to be a mesh pocket on either side. So like we've done with all the other mesh pockets, we are just matching the sides together first. So that side, and then on the back end, we're doing the same thing, matching the bottom and that side. And then we're doing the same on the other side, match the side. There we go. Once we've matched the sides, we are just going to clip the center, oops, together. So if you like to find, however you like to find the center, you can do that. Or to be honest, these ones are quite, like there's not a lot of excess. So I kind of just guesstimate, okay, and then fold the excess in. Now, of course, you can do this in two different steps, so you can just do the sides first and then come back in and do the bottom. That is a easier way to do it than how I'm doing it right now. This is me being lazy, to be honest. Okay. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to head back over to the sewing machine, and we are going to baste all of that down as well. Well, not baste all that down, sorry, baste these pockets down, okay? The mesh pockets down. So we'll do that on both the pieces, and yeah. Okie dokie. So let's bring that sewing machine back in. Okay. Sorry, had to move you guys a little bit because obviously I moved you guys before. So, and this is a basting stitch. There we go. So just baste those down just like we've done on all the other pockets. The only trickier part is that this time there is mesh pockets on both sides, so top and bottom. But otherwise it's exactly the same. Now, if you wanted to, you can actually even just do one side of the mesh first and then go in and do the second side. Like, there is absolutely no reason why you have to do both sides at the same time like me. Yeah, so that's a little tip for you. So if you are relatively new at sewing mesh and you are not liking how this feels, just do one side then the other, okay? Don't feel like you have to do both sides at once just because I'm doing it that way and the pattern instructions do it that way. Go. The first side. Let me just quickly grab the second piece and get that one done as well. That's all done. So I'll head us back over to the overhead and we'll keep moving on. Okay, so let's take a quick look at our side panels now that they're all done. This is what we've got working with us. One side has externals with the other side with the elastic band, as well as the shorter elastic mesh pocket, and then the other one is two sides of lining with mesh pockets. Now, if like me, which you should, you have excess and you haven't trimmed it off yet, please do it now. If you, like me, used fold over elastic, make sure you singe it after you trim it, and also trim off any of that excess mesh as well around those bottom corners. Okay, moving on, we're going to get our zipper onto our side panel. Okay, full disclosure, truth be told, I just seam ripped. So I was a few steps ahead and I just had to seam rip everything because I made a massive mistake. So I'm going to be explaining this so you guys will not make the same mistake I did. Now, also disclaimer, never made a mistake in this step until this time that I was filming. So of course, yeah. But anyway, so we have our two side panels, externals, so the ones that have your external panels with the D-ring, as well as the smaller mesh pocket, right? And we're also going to grab our zipper gussets. If you haven't already, mark your center points on the zipper gusset. So just fold that, mark that zipper gusset and find those centers. Now, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to double check if there is a preference, which panel you want on the left-hand side of your bag, which panel you want on the right-hand side. So I'm going to have this as my left and this is my right. There is no reason, it's just what I've decided. If you haven't already marked centers on the side centers on your external side panel, mark it now. So I've already done it. I showed you guys before how I like to do it earlier before everything else goes on. Okay, now, this is where we have to be careful. So first of all, we are deciding left and right. So left, right. Now your gusset doesn't go on the bottom. It goes on the side, okay? So that's the first part where this pattern is different than normal. So it's not on the bottom, it goes on the side. So the side it goes on is the side that is on the back of the bag, okay? So if this is my left panel, so on this side of the bag, the zipper gusset, will go on the left. This is the right, this one will go on the right. So they will be on opposite sides, first of all. Second of all, we need to pay attention to where your zipper is. So as you can see, my zipper at the moment, this one's on the top, this one's on the bottom. So we don't want that. So we want to make sure that the zippers are both the right direction, okay? So we want to make sure that the zipper pull closes at the top, okay? So now I've got both of the zipper pulls are at the top. One zipper gusset is on the left, one zipper gusset is on the right. So now I'm good. Now I'm good to clip. Just so we know, the mistake I made was I had this zipper that way. So what that would mean is when I finish my bag, I'll have one zipper opening from the top and the other from the bottom. And obviously we don't want that. So double check that they're on opposite sides and the zippers are facing the same direction from the top. We want it closed from the top. So when it's open, it's down here. If it's closed, it's at the top, okay? The reason why you want it closed at the top is because when you're using the bag, having it at the top makes for easier access, okay? Now, once we've got that, we're going to match your side to the bottom of the zipper gusset and you're going to clip it in place. And we're doing that on the other side as well. For this part, I like to clip both of these sides first before I keep moving on so that I do that triple check that they are on opposite sides. Okay, now that that's clipped, we're going to clip the rest of the zipper in place. So the easiest way to do it is to open up your zipper tape so you're only clipping one side. Oh, not only clipping one, of course you're only clipping one side, but you know what I mean. And then we're just going to clip it all in place. Okay, and then I'm clipping the other side as well. Now, truth be told, I don't normally clip. I I normally freehand sew this bit. So it is, if it looks really awkward how I'm clipping it, it's because it is. I'm not used to clipping. It's one of the reasons why I love Jassie's pattern so much. She's measured and done the math so well that it really is just you can, well, for me anyway, I've noticed that I can trust her with just sewing without having to clip, because it just sews beautifully and I don't have to play around with it. Okie dokie, there we go. So that's all clipped into place. So now let's head over to the sewing machine. We're going to get them basted down. And then after that, we're going to bind it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we're doing that with both of these pieces. Okay, so follow me over. One last check. Zipper, when it's opened, is at the bottom and your gussets are on opposite sides of your piece. Okay, we're good. Let's go. Okie dokie, so let's get this basted on and then we are going to bind. Okay, my seam ripper, aka pretend pokey pokey stick, is ready. Go. Okay, so this is just a basting stitch, so we're just doing this with a 1/8 seam allowance. My other piece is getting caught. There we go, so that's the first side done. So quickly get the second one done too. Actually, yeah, before I get that second side done, I'm just going to double check that I'm happy with my sewing, that there's no bunching anywhere, because obviously the next step that we're doing is binding. So if there's any bunching now, it's going to get worse. So I'm just checking, making sure I'm happy with it. Yep, all good. Okay, next one. All done. Now again, double checking that there was no bunching. I'm a little bit worried about that corner because I got caught like a silly billy, but nope, no bunching. Here, nope, all good. Beautiful. Okay, so let's head straight into binding. So I like to bind with fold over elastic. I have a whole video on how to do it, so I won't talk too much about it, but I am using a 3/4 inch fold over elastic to do this one. And we're just binding with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I bind straight off the roll. There's my roll there. And I just clip and maneuver it as I go. I do not pre-clip my fold over elastic. I find it easier for me that way. But that's probably not surprising, seeing that I find it easier to not clip my fabric most of the time as well. So, move this out of the way. I only put that there so that you guys could see my roll. Now that I'm coming to the end, I'm just cutting off my fold over elastic from the roll and then singeing it. Okay, now that that's done and all binded, I'm just going to quickly have a look on the back side. I know this side all caught, but the back I'm not 100% sure because obviously it's underneath. But yep, that's all caught. And yep, all caught. Beautiful. There's a little bit of loose thread there. Let me get that cut off. And then I'm just going to quickly do the other one too. I don't know how well you guys saw that, but I didn't catch the start of my binding on the underside, so I know it's going to stick out on this side, so I'm just going to check it now. No, I caught it when I went back around. Okay, awesome. And everything is caught. Perfect. So what I'm going to do now, just fix that up, is I'm happy with my binding. Everything's caught. It all looks beautiful. I just want to double check those corners, make sure they're beautiful and rounded, which they are. I just need to get rid of some of my loose threads still. Okay, perfect. So let's head back over to the overhead and keep going. Okie dokie. So here is our side panels. So as you can see, we've binded it all. It's all beautiful. Whoops. I say that and then I find loose threads. Of course I do. Okay, so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to zip up these zipper gussets and then turn this right side out like that. When I'm doing this, I like to give my binding a nice little, I don't know if massage is the right word, but like I like to spend a little bit of time pushing on it, making sure it's in the right position, because the more time you let it settle and help it understand where you want it to be, the prettier and the better binding sits, okay? There we go. And the other side as well. Close it up and turn it right side out. Okay, so once we've turned it right side out, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our other pieces, our other side panel, the lining side panel pieces. So like I said, I've got them as two separate colors because I want to make it easier for you guys to see exactly what we're doing. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to find all my centers. Do I need to? Probably not. I like to. So the main center we need to find is actually just the side center like we did on the external one. But I like to have my top and bottom just because I like to. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we are going to match it. And the way we're going to match it is the side that is your inside side panel, the side panel lining, is going to face your side panel lining, okay? The side that's your main interior is going to be outside, okay? So this is your main interior. This is my side panel interior. My side panel goes against the side panel and the external is still by itself, just like that, okay? So, and then we're going to match these center to center on that gusset like we did on the external side, to be honest. It's pretty similar. It's just making sure that we get these, what's it called? These orientations right. And then now we're just going to clip it all in place. Okay, you may have noticed that I seem to be clipping a weird way. Like you would have thought, why is she not opening her zipper and clipping it as the way that you would be sewing this way, right? So for me, I actually find this section, I like sewing it as a loop. So what I mean is I'm actually going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew it like this and continue on. Spoiler alert, this is how we're going to do the final assembly too. And so I just find if I do this part like that as well, it helps me, I guess, A, get used to that final assembly, but also B, just work with something I'm used to. Or if you really want to, you can just clip it and then open it up. For me, it's just more of a matter of, I like to, yeah, this is just as easy to do too. So it's up to you how you want to sew it. Maybe I will sew it this way. Yeah, I'll just sew it this way. I won't sew it in a loop. I'll sew it this way. But for me, I find it easier to clip it closed because it's holding its shape. So you know, so I can measure up everything to go exactly where it's supposed to go easier. So maybe it looks weird. I don't know. But yeah, that's how I do it. Okay, so I'll quickly get this one clipped up as well. You guys don't need to watch me clip, do you? And then we will meet over at the sewing machine where we are going to get that basted together. And then we're going to come back over to the overhead because we're going to get ready for our final assembly. Woohoo! Okie dokie. So we're over at the sewing machine and we are just basting this together. Like I said, you can do it as a loop or you can do it flat. So I'm going to do this one flat now because I'm assuming most of you guys are going to be doing it this way. So let's do it that way. There we go. So that's all basted on that first side. On the second side, I might actually, I might actually baste it as the loop to show you guys what I mean by basting it with the zipper closed and as a loop. I don't know, it maybe it's a trickier sew, but I just like sewing that way, to be honest. Now that I've used the loop, I find for me anyway, it seems to give me a, like that is an easy sew, like having it flat down. But when I sew as a loop, I find I get better results. But join me and see if I still say the same if I'm doing it on camera. So, go, let me just get this together. So when you're sewing as a loop, it's just, yeah, you're literally just looping it. And I've found especially for corners, I find this method for me has been easier once you get used to it. Ta-da! And that's all done. So that's how you baste it as a loop. It's quite a fun thing to do, especially since this is a basting stitch, so it's no stress. It doesn't really matter. So I like to do it, and then you can like test your skills. It's a nice little practice run too. Now, before we move on to the final assembly, I'm just pushing out these corners on the inside because, like I said, binding needs time to settle, especially because I'm using faux leather as well. That also needs time to settle. So I'm giving it a little push, and then I will meet you guys back over at the overhead. Okay, believe it or not, we're here. We're at the final assembly. Okay, so we now have our side panels done. And our main panel, we've brought that back in. I've given it a little bit of a press. It's still a little bit wrinkly, but truth be told, I probably need a little bit longer. I didn't give it enough time, but I will get that sorted later. So first of all, what we're going to do is we are going to turn this inside out again so that we have our lining facing out. Yes, I know I just pressed it and I'm turning it back around, but this one's easy. This one's an easy turn. There we go. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to find our centers on the base. So I match my base side seams together to find it that way, as well as the top. Now, the top should match up with, if you look at this, it should match up with the center of where your zipper, your grab handle is, which mine does. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal. It's just something would have gone wrong somewhere in your seam allowances or when you actually even attached your grab handle. So but the best way to do it is find your center on the base and then find your center on the top, okay? Now that we've found our centers, now this might seem weird, but I like to actually have my flap zip closed when I do this section. So while it's inside out, I'm zipping it closed. Not all the way, so I'm just, if you can see that, I don't know how well you guys can see that, just along the side, so it still creates that fold, but technically this bit here is still unzipped on the top. Well, not fold, but that tubular shape, is that how you say it? I don't know. Anyway, that shape. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to grab our side panels. Now, we are matching your side panels so that the gusset piece, the zipper gusset piece, goes against the back panel, right? So this is my back panel, this is my zipper gusset, so that means that this piece goes here, okay? I'll show you, this piece can't go there because my zipper gusset, it would go against the front, okay? So there's only one way that either of these can go in. If there's more than one way, it means you've made a mistake somewhere earlier. I just realized you can't see well. I have to lift you guys up. Sorry for a second. Yeah. Here we go. That's a bit better. Okay. Ooh. Make more space for myself so I can actually... Okay. So, match your side gusset to the back panel. And then you're matching the center of the bottom to the center of the top, as well as the center of the top to your center here, just like that. Now, truth be told, I've found with this, I've not had to do too much. I've not had to clip too much. It's just a matter of putting it in. The measurements of these are so perfect that you literally slide it straight in, if my zipper wasn't in the way, and it just automatically goes to shape, right? So it's actually super easy. I'm just double checking my center point there, match my center to there, perfect. And then clip the rest in place. I find it easier to leave this zipped up through the basting and through the clipping, the whole bit, because it holds its shape perfectly and it fits in there exactly how it's meant to fit in. So that's why I prefer to do it this way and leave it zipped up. Especially, I talked about it a little bit before, I think, about how we're going to sew in a loop. So this is going to be another loop sew. So this is exactly the shape we want it to hold, and this is exactly the shape that it is going to stay in. I don't know why I'm clipping so much. In all my tester makes, I never clip. I feel like I'm clipping because I'm expected to clip. A nice little check-in point to make sure that this is the right, like is sitting in the right spot as well. It should really just slide in. If you had that zipper closed and you just slide it in, it should just slide in. But another way to make sure that it is look how perfectly those mesh pockets line up. You see that? So if it doesn't line up, again, it could be that it's not placed in right, or more likely it wasn't sewn on right. But here we go. So I'm going to get the other side chucked in there as well. And then we're going to go over to the sewing machine. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to do one side and then come do the other. Yep, I'll do one side and then come back and do the other, because it makes it easier, because I can put my hand in there when I maneuver it. So we're going to go over and we're going to sew it. So like I said, in a loop. So if you've never done a loop before, I think I did it the first time on the Pandora Allure tutorial, I want to say. And you're kind of just sewing it this way. So my sewing machine's here and my foot's here, and we're sewing this way instead of like how you would normally sew flat. We're sewing this way as a loop. Okay, so let's head over to the sewing machine and let's get this sewn down. Okay, I want to make sure you guys have a good angle on this, because I think this is the part that most people will probably struggle with, because it's probably a part that like not a lot of people sew like this. So what we're doing, like I said, we're coming in as a loop. Just move that other piece out of my way, I want to make sure I have a lot of room over on the left hand side of me. Okay, so I'm just bringing it in under here. Now, this is the part where I am missing my pokey stick, truth be told. because my pokey pokey stick helps me hold everything in place as I go. Jassy swears by a hemostat, so if you are good at using hemostats, I haven't quite worked out that grip, so that's why I don't. But we are just basting this in, so it's not anything tricky, it's just a basting stitch, so it's 1A, no need to stress about it. My big stressor points are, weirdly enough, the fold over elastics. Just getting caught, first of all, in my sewing foot, and then here again on my screw that holds my sewing foot. So they're the 2 points that I have to watch out for. I don't know if that's the same for everyone else, but it is for me. Okay. Okay, so now that we get to here, this is probably a problem bit that some people are like, how am I doing this? It's actually super simple. You're just holding your bag, and then I like to hand crank and then you're just maneuvering the bag as it goes. And it just sews down just like that. Now, if you are finding this bit tricky, especially those corners, because truth be told, I've done a few this way, okay? So maybe I'm looking and making it sound easier than it is. But even the first time I did it, I thought it was a super easy way to do gussets. And truth be told, I've converted most of my gussets to doing it this way. But if you are struggling with it, okay, what you can do is do your straight edges first. So come in, do that straight edge, do this straight edge, do that straight edge. And then once the straight edges are on, then come back in and do the corners, because then at least everything else is held in place. But I found because of how perfectly this fits, because of the like shape and the structure of the bag, it actually pretty much holds itself and it just does it itself. It's super, super simple. The only trick I would say is sometimes in the corners, if it's poking out like it is here, just grab your pokey pokey stick, or if you don't have one, like me, a seam ripper, and just hold it in place. And then as you can see here, my zipper is coming away from there. But as I come back over to the front, if it still doesn't automatically pop back into place, I've just got my hand under here, just move it back in. My mesh got caught on my thread guide, so that's another little point to be wary of as well, is mesh and thread guides. See, and once it lies back flat, it all lines up again. There we go. And we're all basted down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to have a quick check, make sure I'm happy with it all. The biggest worries I've got were these top corners. I didn't know if they crinkled or not, but they didn't. They're perfect. Beautiful. Everything is caught is the next big thing to check. Now, if you'd like to, you can also open the bag up. Let me make some space. You can open the bag up and just double check that it's sewn on properly, and double check your stitches, just like this. See, it's all beautiful. And you can check the bottom, but I'm pretty confident with it. I don't like over checking if I don't have to, because birthing. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're happy with that, we've done the check. What we're going to do next is we are going to bind that whole section. So like I've binded before, this is no different to how I normally bind. I use fold over elastic, I clip it in, well, I just sew it. Now, I lie a little bit on this one. I have actually clipped some in the past, so let's see how I go. There was one that I clipped as I sewed because I struggled with how tight this section is. So I found clipping it beforehand helped a little bit with the fold over elastic, but we'll see how we go. If I can find my fold over elastic, that is. Found it. Okay. So like always, make sure you singe the end before you start. I like to start the fold over elastic at near the front zipper pocket. There's no rhyme or reason where you should start, where you shouldn't. In the past, I normally start at the bottom, but this one, the bottom's not as wide as the sides. And I feel like on the side, front where the zipper pocket is, it's not as noticeable. And I've said before, but your start and finish point on your fold over elastic is always going to be your messiest, or the biggest chance of it being messy. So I like to keep it in a spot that is less likely to be noticed, okay? So that to me is the side with the zipper pocket. So the front flap side, okay? And so we are binding this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now for these corners, you saw I used a clip before, but what I'm going to do now is I use my pokey stick and I kind of hold it in place as I sew around that bend. I find that that's the easiest way to keep it where it needs to be and the elastic be as close to the seam as you need it to be. I'm hoping you guys can see well. I think so. I have a feeling this might not have caught down the bottom edge, but that's fine. If it didn't catch on the bottom, I can always fix it afterwards. That's one of my favorite things about binding. Some people don't like binding because they feel like it's tricky, but it's actually, once you've learned how to do it, it creates amazing structure, but also it's not, I don't want to say it hides errors well, but it does hide errors well, I guess, is what I'm saying. Okay, we're coming back towards the starting point now. So I'm just trimming off my excess threads, trimming off the excess fold over elastic, giving it a singe. There we go, that's all done. So let's pull it out. Now we're going to double check to see if it was all caught. I know that there's spots that I've missed. So we're looking on the other side. There's a tiny little section here where the start and finish points are. I like to put a clip on it so that they're easy to find. And then the bit that I thought didn't catch. Perfect. 2 little bits to finish. Well, to fix. So, which is good because I like being able to show you guys how to fix it too. So to fix it, I come in the opposite way. So before I was sewing this way up, right? So this time, so this way up for this error, I'm going to sew this way down. So the side that I didn't catch, I'm having it facing up. And then when we do this, you'll also understand why Jassy says to sew it in a loop, okay? Because this is impossible. Let me tell you, I don't mind going in to like fix a tiny little section, but if I had to sew a whole bag like this, no thank you. And then I just use my pokey stick to pull the fold over elastic over enough to cover that initial line of stitches. I don't know how well you can see that there's the sewing stitches there. So I just kind of cover it up. That way you don't end up with multiple lines of stitches. So everything still looks neat and tidy. So let's bring you guys in so I can show you what I mean. Okay, so this is the bit I've just fixed up. Like you can kind of see it, but it's not super obvious. And then on the other side, here you go, you can kind of see it, but it's not super obvious. So yeah, that's how you fix your binding errors. So I mentioned before, I have a tape on all my tips on how to bind with fold over elastic. My biggest tip is to match your lining and thread and fold over elastic all to the same color. As you can see, I have not completely followed my own tips. I am using different color lining against my fold over elastic, but I will always match my thread colors to my fold over elastic. That to me is a non-negotiable. Okay, so if I don't have thread color that matches my fold over elastic, I won't use that fold over elastic until I buy the right color thread. It's really that simple. Okay, So that's the first side done. So now we need to do the second side. I'm going to give myself a quick little break. Then we'll come back over and we'll do the second side. Okay, sounds good. Okay, I'm back. So let's get on to the other side. So I'm not going to bring us back over to the other side because you guys saw how I did it before. You don't need me to show you. But if you did, remember, side gusset against the back. It should be the only way that it can go on because truth be told, yeah, it just should because it's your only piece left, right? You've already done the other piece. And I'm just matching center to center on the bottom so that I can slide this top in. You will notice that I still haven't opened up my zippers yet. Like my zipper is still completely all closed. I like it like that. It helps me get everything in place a little bit better, I found for me. Keep maneuvering the bag so that I can let you guys in a little bit better, but maybe I should have just set you guys up so that you guys could actually see what I was from the overhead, but no. But yeah, like it's looking like, as you can see, like I've just put that base in, push the top in, and then everything pretty much goes into place. Like there's not actually that much that I need to do in terms of like maneuvering or anything because it fits that well. Okay, I'm just kind of putting a couple of clips here and there so that when I'm sewing it doesn't pop out, that's all. There's really no measuring or making sure it's all in the right space. I'm just double checking what my zipper's doing over here because I don't want to sew onto my zipper. A lot of loose threads there. Just put one more over here. Why not? Yeah. Actually, do I even have to? If I just start sewing from there, then I don't have to clip there because, yeah. Okay, let's do that. Let's just sew from here. Okay, so like we did before, we are now going to base that panel in. So just a 1/8 seam allowance, nice and easy. We've done it all before, so I'm not going to talk too much through it. So we're just basting. And also, yeah. Oh, one little tip. So obviously when we did the other side, this side was empty, so I can put my hand in to guide the bag that way. Obviously it's closed now, so you can't put your hand in to guide it. So I'm known to quite just put my hand in here and then guide it from inside here, okay? I do still leave this flap. I do still leave the flap zipped shut. I can't talk this morning. And the only reason for it is I just find it easier when it's all zipped tight so that the bag holds its shape. Really, that's all it is. Because when the bag is holding its shape, yeah, it does, everything goes exactly where it's meant to go. And it's just easier for me. Okay, so we are basting. So it is just a 1/8 seam allowance. And that is why I don't clip things, because when I clip things, the clips fly out and attack me. Let's get rid of these clips so they can stop attacking me. How about that? And then, see, this is what I'm talking about, like getting my hand in there. So I'm just putting my hand in through there, through that flat bit, but still keeping it mostly zipped tight. So the bag still holds its shape how it's supposed to hold it. Stop attacking me, clips. These clips are just attacking me left, right, and center. Oh, I'm stuck. I'm caught. Here we go. All done. So just going to quickly clean off a lot of these thread ends like you guys saw when I was sewing. For some reason I have a lot of thread ends here. I don't know why. It's probably super obvious when I watch back and realize I never cut my threads, but you know. Okie doke. So I'm quickly double checking this side as well, just like I did the other side, making sure that there's no crinkles, everything's caught, it looks beautiful. Again, you can turn it right side out to double check. Again, I'm not going to do that because I am overconfident with myself and truth be told, I just can't be bothered. It really is that simple. I don't have the hand strength to just keep birthing a bag if I don't have to. Okay, so straight into binding. This is your final bind. This is it. After this, we are done with sewing for this bag. Again, I am binding on the zipper gusset, not the zipper gusset side, the front section, so against the zipper pocket, because I just like to. It is trickier on this side to get it under here because obviously I have no way to access inside, but it is fine. We will make it work. Or not. And we're binding with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Don't know how well you guys can see because of all my clips, to be honest. There we go. Let's have a look. I'm not super in love with how that felt. I feel like I've made a couple of little silly boo-boos. So let's have a look. Sure enough, yep, here it is. This little bit here, it didn't catch. Well, I guess they're not silly boo-boos. I've just missed a couple of spots, that's all. On the underside, that's good there. Oh, there's a bit of a section here. Oh, sorry, I'm knocking you guys. And this side I knew I didn't catch. There we go. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to quickly fix up these couple of sections and then we will keep going. Do I do this as one big part? Potentially even. I don't know. Let's see. This is going to be my trickiest one to fix because it's right on a curve. Ay, 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 Sammy Sam. Yeah, let's just pull that out. The good thing with when you're fixing the binding that I think it's also really important to remember, it's not a structural fix that you're fixing because your external and your lining and everything is still sewn together at that 1/4 inch that the other side was sewn at, right? So this is really just, it's a fixing, it's a cosmetic thing, okay? So it's not really something to stress that much about. That's how I see it anyway. And then last little bit here to fix. Perfect. Okay, that's all fixed up. So let's head back over to the overhead and we'll get it turned right side out. Okie dokie, so we're fresh off the sewing machine from binding. I did a little bit of fixing with the binding. You guys saw that. So this is it. She's all done. So let's turn her right side out and get her birthed. Now, I've said this before, well, not in this video maybe, but if you are doing all vinyl like me and you're not filming a tutorial, feel free to use a hairdryer to soften the vinyl first before you turn it right side out. This is, as much as I'm struggling, this is a easy bag to birth than most because obviously it's a giant, I'm just turning it right side out. It's not even birthing, am I? But yeah. Okie dokie. There we go. So that's it. That's our Packmate, Sewfisticated Packmate. Pretty much done. Now, burped her out. I have a few loose threads I need to trim off. Obviously, she doesn't look as beautiful yet as, you know, my tester makes, because, and I've said this before in all of my videos, she is straight off the sewing machine. She's just been through a sewing machine. She's just been birthed. Your bag is not going to be looking perfect at this point in time. The main thing that you're looking for is there is no puckering. All your seams are sewn. They're beautiful. I've got loose threads that I need to trim, but she is a beautiful bag. What I like to do now, and this is a step that a lot of bag makers missed, I harp on about it if you've watched any of my other videos, is to let it sit. If it's vinyl like this, I like to stuff her full with towels, give her a little blast with a hairdryer, warm her up, stuff her full of towels so she can sit into her shape. If you don't have time to let it sit, you're about to hop on your plane, you want to use her right now. One thing that I would say with any bag that has binding, push it around the binding spots. Make sure you get those corners out. Give it a really good press everywhere that has corners, has curves, so that your bag knows what you're expecting of it, okay? Best thing you can do is let her sit, give her time to settle. If you don't have time, this is what we're doing. We are pressing and getting her into shape, okay? That's the biggest difference between a bag that looks absolutely top-notch amazing and one that's like, oh, it's a bit wrinkly, okay? So give it some good presses, make sure she's comfy. But I will give her a settle and talk to you guys in the outro. But let's have one last look, or one last close look, I guess, of the Sewfisticated Packmate that we did today. So you have a main compartment, your two side compartments, D-ring if you wanted to make it into an adjustable handbag. Like I said before, one of my tester makes, I actually made this as a handbag instead of a hanging toiletries bag. You have two side pockets that open up on your side gusset like that, both with mesh pockets as well as elastic to hold in your makeup brushes, toothbrushes, anything that's longer that hangs out. Going into your main compartment, you have a handheld two-tone strap or two-tone handle. Open it up. You have pockets on your flap. The pockets are either with mesh or with a clear. You have a hanging hook. You have your zipper pocket divider. You have divider pockets on the back made with mesh, on the side with mesh, and big, gorgeous, plenty of space there. So we've done it. We've finished our Packmate. I'll meet you back and say our final goodbyes. Ta-da! And there you have it. That's your Sewfisticated Packmate by Sewfisticated Craft Designs, all done. She is such a fun sew. I absolutely love sewing with you guys today. If you enjoyed my video or would like to see further updates, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. I really do appreciate it. If any products that I've used I've mentioned, I will drop a link in the descriptions below. Some of them I am an affiliate for, so I may receive affiliate payments for. So thank you so much for supporting me and my little business. But that's all for now. It's Sam from Made by Erland. I'll see you guys next time.